Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's strategic planning meeting. The date is, for the record, is Thursday, the 18th of December, 2025. So can we have any apologies, please, for absence?
I've had an apology from Councillor Alvey, and he's being substituted today by Councillor Jane Pascoe.
Thank you.
Just to let you know, I'd have to leave here at 2:30 for a doctor's appointment at 4. So
Fine.
hopefully we'll be done by then.
Thank you, Andrew. If we do an introduction of members for the public gallery, my name is Chris Batters. I'm the chairman of the Strategic Planning Committee. I represent the Knivet, Blisland and Bodmin St Lawrence area. If we go around clockwise, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Councillor James Bull, representing Camborne, Rosgier and Tuckingham.
Oh, to Alan.
Morning, Councillor Alan Rowe, Falmouth Penwherris.
In Dartherville, good morning, everybody. Councillor Andrew Long, Callington and St Dominic Division.
Good morning to all. Councillor Jane Pascoe, representing Liscard South and Obwalls. I'm Councillor Dulcie Tudor, and I represent Chasewater and Three Milestone.
Good morning, John Martin Cornwall, Councillor for Marazion, Long Rock and St Earth.
Good morning, Peter Channon, Councillor for Hale.
Good morning, Councillor Sally Harrison for Redruth South.
Mittendar, Roger Tarrant, Councillor for Redruth North.
Morning, Hugh Gibbon, Highways Officer.
Morning, everyone. Ben Kerno from the Council's Legal Services.
Angela Saunders, Democratic Services.
Ellie Inglis Walcott, Principal Development Officer and Case Officer for Item 1.
Morning, everybody. I'm Mark Broomhead. I'm the Group Leader for Item 1. Matt Stevenson will be the Group Leader for Item 2 and Gavin Smith for Item 3.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest today, please?
Yes, Chair. Item 4.3, I have to declare a disposable pecuniary interest, so I'll be leaving for that meeting.
18th, 2025.
Oh, sorry. Thank you very much. Yes. Oh. No, it's that's the damn trouble when you got Trump as a friend. He interferes everywhere. Yeah.
Councillor Tarrant, you're required to declare why you've got an interest for the purpose of the minutes.
Okay, I run a similar business to that care business in Bodmin.
That's the damn trouble when you got thank you very much. Minutes of the last meeting held on the 25th of September. Can we have proposed or seconded? Proposed by Vice Chair, seconded by Councillor Channing. Sorry. Oh, yes, and a vote, please, to ensure. Yeah. Thank you. Applications today. Our first application is PA 24-08685, land north of Roseworthy Hill and south of the A30 in Camborne. And we pass you over to the officer presenting, and that's Ellie. Over to you, Ellie.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to share the presentation. Just before I get into the presentation, I just want to say that we know that members received a legal letter yesterday from Hill Dickinson, and we just wanted to clarify a couple of points in that letter. So we just wanted to say that we consider that the report is sound and fit for purpose, and that we've considered the application under policy 20.2A, so that's waste policy, in that it's located in close proximity to locations from which the majority of the waste arises. So for this particular application, waste is going to come from the household waste recycling centres of Poole, United Downs, Falmouth and Helston, and then also waste from local councils of Hale, Camborne and Helston. And so policy 20.2A is relevant in this case, and we've not considered it under policy 5.1C. And then another point of clarification is just that there was mention of a bioaerosol assessment. So the applicants did produce a bioaerosol assessment, and that has been considered in the assessment of this application. So those are just points to kind of to clarify on that. Obviously, you can take any questions on it. So yeah, so this is an application for wood composting and green waste processing and recycling on land north of Roseworthy Hill, so south of the A30 Camborne. The site's known as Roseworthy and is referred to as such in the presentation and also in the report. So the project involves creating a facility for the composting of green waste using open windrow and the processing of waste wood and storage and export of agricultural plastics. The proposal would have an annual throughput of 38,000 tonnes of waste, so that would be comprising of 25,000 tonnes of green waste, 10,000 tonnes of waste wood and 3,000 tonnes of plastic. The proposed facility is to be commercial and wouldn't be open to the public. A technical briefing was held for members on the 27th of November, and that included a presentation from the applicant and their representatives. So moving on to the key issues to consider as set out in the report are the benefits of waste recycling, noise and traffic impacts, landscape and visual impacts, and contaminated land. This slide shows the location of the proposed development outlined in red. So it's approximately 2.6 kilometres from Camborne, approximately 420 metres east of Connor Downs and 440 metres to the west of the hamlet of Roseworthy. The site lies outside of any landscape designations. This is a site plan. So the site covers an area of 5.9 hectares and comprises 2 agricultural fields, which have been assessed as being grade 3B agricultural land, and it's bordered by Cornish hedges. You'll see the access from the old A30 to the south, and the A30 is to the north. The site access will be widened by 4 metres, and cars and HGVs will be separated on site. This is just an aerial image of the site. Again, you can see the access to the south, and then the A30 to the north. This slide shows the proposed site layout, which includes a level development platform to form the green and wood storage yard, a 3-metre high concrete retaining wall around the perimeter. So this is shown in blue. I don't know whether you can see that clearly. A commercial scale agricultural building, which is here, which will include a workshop, compost storage and an office. And I'll show you some of the elevations of the building on another slide. An attenuation pond, weighbridge and plant parking area, car parking spaces, a single point of access, as I've mentioned, and landscape planting around the site. So these are the elevations of the proposed commercial building. The building's 10 metres high, 72 metres long and 32 metres wide, and the building will be clad and the external finishes will be secured by condition. This slide shows the landscaping plan. It's a bit busy slide, so apologies for that, but to highlight a few areas of note. So the existing wet woodland to the north here will be retained. Wildflower meadows will be created around the site. Native scrub planting is proposed on the embankment slopes. A new Cornish hedge will be created on the west of the working yard, and the Cornish hedge around the edge of the concrete wall will be retained. And native wood planting on the site facing Roseworthy Hill and new native woodland planting on the southeast embankment. So now I'm going to show you some of my photos of the site. So this is a view across the site towards the north, looking towards the scheduled monument of Roseworthy Arsenic Works, which is about 400 metres to the north, across the other side of the A30. So this side just shows the site entrance on the left, and then the current access. And these images show the entrance onto the old A30 Roseworthy Hill. So the one on the left is looking towards Connor Downs, and the one on the right looking towards the hamlet of Roseworthy. So just moving on to the balance of considerations. The proposed development would have an annual throughput of 38,000 tonnes of green and wood waste, and offers benefits in terms of waste recycling. The proposed development would contribute to sustainable waste management through increasing recycling, which accords with the Council's resources and waste strategy. Minimising waste is a key aim of the Council's Climate Emergency DPD, and the local plan supports proposals for recycling that are in close proximity to the location from which the majority of waste arises. So the proposal would deliver greater than 10% of biodiversity net gain, so 30.26% net gain in habitat units and 49.68% net gain in hedgerow units. And these factors weigh heavily in favour of the proposal. Whilst the proposal would give rise to some adverse visual and landscape impacts, particularly in the short term until the landscape planting establishes, the development would not be out of place in the landscape as it has an agricultural appearance. Sorry, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Sorry. In terms of the benefits of providing a waste recycling facility, any adverse impacts on the landscape and visual amenity are not of overriding significance, and with suitable planning conditions to control the external appearance, surface finishes, planting and other mitigation, the development would be acceptable in this regard. In terms of the historic asset, the nearest scheduled monument is an arsenic works, which lies approximately 400 metres to the north on the other side of the A30, but it is concluded that the proposed development would have a neutral impact on the setting of the scheduled monument. In view of the nature of the proposed development and with controls through planning conditions, there should be no significant impacts on areas of recognised ecological interest or significant impacts on flood risk or surface water, and there should be no significant adverse impact on local amenity in respect of noise, dust or odour release, or any adverse impacts associated with traffic or contaminated land. The recommendation as set out in the report is approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ellie. Our first public speaker is Mrs. Jenny Olds. Could you put your hand up so I know who you are? Lovely. You have 3 minutes. Just prior to the end of it, about 30 seconds from the end, you'll be given the warning over the microphone. And if you can cut off at 3 is fine. Okay, away you go. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Jenny Olds. I'm a farmer and rural chartered surveyor and live directly opposite the proposed site where my husband's family have farmed for the last 113 years. We purchased compost produced by the applicant as there's no doubt it's an excellent product for increasing organic matter of soils. However, I object to the relocation of this industrial facility to a greenfield site as it fails to comply with so many planning policies and is based on flawed data. The application says the expansion of Splatton Ridden and other sites were considered but discounted for logistical reasons. The applicant told me in 2018 it was much cheaper to develop a greenfield site. The predominant justification for this site is that it very altruistically saves the carbon emissions from Cornwall Council's waste vehicles by saving some of them a journey of 5.9 miles south. This will be redundant when council vehicles move to electric, and there's no actual carbon calculation for the project as a whole to consider the development and operational carbon emissions. The Transport Advice Note uses vehicle number data that is 7 years old. If operations cease at Splatton Ridden, then using data sets from the TAN, if Cornwall Council vehicles are contractually bound to access the site from Camborne West, the number of miles driven will actually increase, not decrease, which completely negates the whole justification. Policy 1 from the local plan states the council should take a positive approach to development that improves economic, social and environmental conditions. There's no improvement to any of these 3 strands, as this is merely a relocation. Policy 19 asks for a best solution having regard to the waste hierarchy. Again, this is not a proposal for a new development to reuse or recycle waste, it's a relocation. The proposed site area is 17,400 metres squared. The Splatton Ridden site is 19,400, so why are they downsizing? The design and access statement says 39,000 tonnes will be processed, but the comparison document says 49,000. Policy 20, the proposal does not make use of heat generated. It's not located in a closer or better proximity to where a majority of waste arises, and it doesn't use previously developed land or suitable industrial estates. Policy 5 states new employment should be supported where there is an overriding need. There's no need to be at Roseworthy. Why are they not exploring brownfield sites such as a now redundant compost facility at Penryn? Policy 21 covers best use. Their agricultural advisor from the Midlands, who assessed the field in February 2020, concluded this was grade 3B land because of some puddles in the tracks. The land has been double cropped with vegetables for decades and by the applicants themselves when they first owned it. I understand the KC has advised the council that if this flawed application is granted, it wouldn't be lawful. And in the view of this
30
KC,
seconds
it would
left.
be exceptionally reckless of the council to pass it. I therefore strongly urge the members to refuse this application.
Thank you very much. If you can just hold for the moment, because there was a late arrival in the councillor here. If you would like to tell the public who you may be, because you obviously will be part of this meeting shortly, because you've heard the presentation.
Hello, good morning. Councillor Adrian Parsons representing the Elton Nunn and Stoke Clemson division, and apologies for being late. And just for clarification, is it okay for me to comment on this application, please?
Was.
Yeah, so my advice to Councillor Parsons would be that you came in at 10:04 and you've hardly missed anything, and I made a note of your arrival and you've been here for the majority of the presentation.
That's what I thought. That's why I thought we should introduce who he is. Fine. We now have questions of the speaker for clarification. That's the word, clarification. So hands up anyone who wishes to question Mrs. Olds on anything she may have said. Adrian, Councillor Parsons.
Hello, good morning, Mrs. Olds. Just for clarification, where did you say you live, please?
I live on the opposite side of the valley to the application site.
Was that Hope Farm, did you say?
No, I live at Cornhill Farm.
Cornhill, right, thank you.
Any other questions for clarification of the speaker? No? Right. Thank you very much, Mrs. Oates. We move on now to the next speaker, Councillor Carl Gill of Gwynier Gwydion Parish Council. Mr. Gill, are you? That's it. I saw you look towards me. I thought it probably was, but one likes to see who one is. You still have the same 3 minutes. You will be given the 30-second warning before the end. Okay, so away you go.
Thank you. We understand the value of green waste processing and recycling, cutting the amount of waste going to landfill, thus reducing methane emissions, the production of soil enhancers, and assisting in meeting crucial waste and carbon reduction targets. However, the scale, location, and overbearing nature of these proposals are not appropriate. Proposals for new business developments in small rural settlements should be of a scale appropriate to their location and demonstrate an overriding locational and business need. This proposal does not meet this test. The parish council and the bulk of its residents believe this proposal is inherently in the wrong place. The proposal does not maintain local distinctiveness and character, nor protect the existing natural environment. The parish council objects to this application and supports its residents in wishing to see the proposal withdrawn. The parish council believes that the community well-being is an important consideration, with residents' fears regarding noise, odour, contaminated soil and runoff, flooding, fire risk, loss of agricultural land, light spillage, haulage, traffic, and the cumulative detrimental impact on their quality of life have either not been taken seriously, been ignored, or not fully considered. These concerns are valid and warrant more careful and considerate investigation, hopefully commencing here. It seems that little or no consideration has been given to the fact that the site appears to lie within 4 SSSI impact zones: Gwydion to Mexico Towns, Hale Estuary, Godrevy Hedges, and Agnes and Loggins Moor. The proposal includes a large industrial scale building in the open countryside. It will be highly visible from some surrounding areas. The character of the site will undergo substantial change, adversely affecting landscape, ecological protection, land stability, drainage, and land use. Where is the lawfully required environmental impact assessment? Seemingly no consideration has been given to the impact on nearby businesses, briefly speaking, a stone's throw away. Noise and odour generation, for example, will not only impact nearby residents, but a number of local holiday sites, for instance, who may be directly, indirectly, and adversely affected. Where is the local business impact assessment? The parish council and local residents' road safety concerns do not appear to have been taken seriously. The Transportation Advisory Note severely underestimates the impact on the existing strained local network and only deals with waste diverted from St Earth. Tourism and farming are the backbone of the parish. The mix of tractors, haulage vehicles, and tourism traffic
30 seconds
have
left.
not been adequately investigated and considered. Concerningly, application documents appear to have some element of contradiction, and a number of policies, including the parish neighbourhood development plan, are in conflict with this. For these reasons and others, we urge you to refuse this application or at the very least defer any decision pending further investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Are there any questions of the councillor for clarification purposes, please? Any questions at all? No? Thank you very much, councillor. Our next speaker is Ms. Janine Banks. Are you hand up? I can't see you. There you are. Yes, hi. You've got 3 minutes, and as you've just seen, you'll get a 30-second warning before the end. So when you're ready, away you go. Thank you.
Chairman, members, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Janine of Stage Planning for the applicant in this matter. The applicant is a Cornish company born of a Cornish farming family. James, second generation for the applicant company, will address you. James is here. The proposal is about a new green waste processing facility for Cornwall, strategically located to serve the county in tandem with the company's other facilities, and designed to manifest as a typical agrarian scheme which will assimilate into its setting. The Green Waste Company and its employees serve Cornwall, taking its green and wood waste and making product of that waste so that it doesn't go to landfill or litter Cornwall's laybys and countryside. The product of the company's process, by an ancient process, Winrose, is a natural fertiliser, absent synthetic chemicals. From start to finish, the process is entirely consistent with the waste hierarchy and Cornwall's waste plan. The proposal before you is driven by need, service, logistics and efficiency, taking in both costs and collection and disposal of this waste and savings in the carbon footprint. Your officer report aptly and fully describes the journey that brings the proposal and me and James before you today. Understanding the operations, the driver and need for a new facility, the site selection, the multidisciplinary site appraisal in the context of all location, site constraints and sensitivities, proposed operations and planning policy, and design so that what's proposed will sit and fit in that context and work beneficially and without adversity for the applicants and community. Through the preliminary and planning process, we've been into the community. We've listened, we've adjusted, responded and returned. Your officer report records that process and carefully records the responses from the council's own multidisciplinary team and external consultees as they've considered the proposals. There are conditions which are understood and embraced by the applicant, but overwhelmingly that independent consensus wholly supports the proposal, citing development plan policy with approval. That consensus similarly fully supports the officer report to this committee, finding that in all aspects, as carefully detailed, the proposal accords with the development plan and is therefore suitable for approval. I therefore ask you to support your officer's recommendation as put. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the speaker for clarification? Councillor Harrison.
Apologies if this information is already in the reports pack, but is there capacity to expand the St Earth site, because that's not far away from this site?
No, there isn't. We're at
Neighbours.
James.
Let me ask the public to refrain from laughing anymore, please. Serious matter.
Sorry, I didn't hear the answer.
The response is no. It is a logistical issue as well. So in terms of where the waste is coming from, the expediency of having, when you've got a route and 14 sites, the vehicles are going back on themselves. So it's strategically locating the sites so that the collections are local to the facility. So 7 of the collection sites will go to Roseworthy.
5.
And the remainder will go to
Roach.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? Yes, councillor Tudor.
Hello. Just in the applicant's opinion then, would you say that this application, or could you sort of explain how this does not fragment the sort of wider farm unit, if you like?
The farm, or the farm comprises.
No, I'm sorry, sir. I think you're just about to speak. It's only one speaker. You'll have your chance in a moment, I would think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's open.
Fine, but it is simply, it is Ms. Janine Banks at the moment. The questions are for her for clarification purposes. Any more questions? Mr. James Richards, I presume that's yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Yeah, fine. Questions? Oh no, sorry. First of all, you got your 3 minutes, obviously,
Thanks. Yeah, no
and
trouble.
you'll be given a 30-second warning.
No problem. Right. Yeah. So my name's James Richards, and I manage the Green Waste business. So we're a Cornish family business and a professional company that we've been over 25 years experience in the specialist recycling industry, working closely with the council. We've won national awards, including Farmers Weekly Farm Diversification of the Year a few years back. Starting out in a converted farmyard in the late 90s, where we are today, is what's forced the move. We currently recycle 100% of the green waste in Cornwall, derived from 14 HWRCs, as well as the brown bin door-to-door collections, but that's split between both sites, the Roach and the Hale site. Being surrounded by the sea on 3 sides means there's no more material for us to take for further expansion. Prior to the inception of the business, all the green waste went to landfill, which we've diverted over 1 million tonnes of green waste since we started the business. It's good to keep the process in Cornwall rather than sending it out of the county like the food waste. If you don't have facilities set up to handle it, then there's only one option, and that is to send it out of county, which is not only a financial hit for the council, but also saves the cost and emissions from all the haulage. With a proven track record of having previously delivered a similar project at our purpose-built Roach facility, which is runner-up in the national awards for excellence in recycling and waste management. We don't work on sociable hours. We're currently 7:30 to 5:30, Monday to Friday. We have no staff in over the weekends. And that's fair. It's nice to see Mrs. Olds here, a successful farmer across the road of Cornhill. It's one of our biggest customers, buying hundreds of tons of compost each year to improve the quality of the land of their own farm across the A30 from the proposed site, as she's mentioned. Compost is also used by the Eden Project, many National Trust gardens, large-scale Cornish family businesses like ourselves. So we've got Southern England Farms, Riviera Produce, who are also big employers in the area. Our doors are always open. We're proud of what it is we've built with our team. They're more than happy to show anybody what it is that they do on a day-to-day basis, because they're also equally as passionate and love the opportunity to show others around. We have visits for a range of groups. We open the doors to young farmers, WI, gardening groups, to name a few. In terms of the look, we're big advocates of bunding, as recommended in the reports, and you can see on our current sites that's what we strive for, as well as rigorous tree planting and aid screening the site to help it really blend into the surroundings as quickly as possible. Lastly,
30 seconds left.
the proposed site will be further from the nearest resident at Roseworthy than it is at the current site at Splat and Ridden. In fact, they were twice the distance. And we have a very good rapport with our current neighbours and the Environment Agency alike. And I have no doubt that will continue going forward.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for clarification of Mr. Richards, please? Councillor Tudor.
While you've actually sort of detailed in your speech, like
Can you address the microphone as well?
addressed some of the questions that I wanted, I suppose, because this is a non-traditional diversification. So it was just really about sort of explaining how this doesn't fragment the farm unit.
Yeah, okay, so I can get to it now. So the farming unit is completely separate entity to the recycling business. Different directors, different owners. So the two are two separate. The tie-up at the minute is that the farming company are on the doorstep of the recycling company, and both a squeeze on space. So effectively someone has to move, and that is us, because the farmer got its roots there and been there a lot longer than we have. So we've got to find somewhere that's big enough to facilitate what we have going on. So when we started initially, much smaller business, when we started out 25 years ago, we didn't expect it to get to the size it is. And like I say, at the minute, we're 100% capacity of what we take. And we're in the same size yards we were in 25 years ago.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for clarification of the speaker, please? Yes, councillor.
I'm not sure if it's appropriate here, but I was just wondering how much, was there any local employment you were providing through your company, please?
Yeah, so we employ around 15 people locally. So 5 of those are from the Troon Camborne area, a couple from the Crowless Penzance area, and a couple from the St Ives area. So a couple will have to travel further for work. 5 of those will be closer for work. But yeah, everyone lives locally.
Yes, yes.
Just one more. I just wondered what you'd done or your company had done to bring the community Roseworthy along with you.
Well, we haven't done too much just yet because we haven't got to that stage. Once we get, the next foot over the line, that'll be the next sort of port of call, really.
Okay, are there any more questions for Mr. Richards? Councillor Pascoe.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Can I ask you, in the report on page 54, paragraph 131, it talks about the transport advisory note, and it's talking about the traffic implications. Can you tell me, it actually says, it is noted that the largest vehicles would be contractually bound to be routed via the A30 and the Camborne West Junction. Are you able to tell me how you are actually going to be able to enforce that and manage it? I bring this up because, as you will know, Chairman, I have commented in my division, we have a lot of vehicular movements there in narrow lanes. So can you tell me how will that be enforced and managed? Because it doesn't always work on paper.
Yeah, so our biggest and by and large contract is with the council. So that is through a company called Suez. They are the sort of the middleman, if you like. The council contract Suez subcontract us to the Greenway side of things. And our contract with them can say whatever we want it to say in terms of routing. So we could write into the contract that that is the route they take. That is the route they have to take. And we do take smaller vehicles. So we take 3.5 ton tipper trucks. So the same size as a van, effectively. But all of the council vehicles are 8-wheel lorries, skip lorries. And that is 80% of what comes into site. So we can easily contract it. That is the route they take.
Thank you. I just want to be clear that's really going to be monitored because it doesn't always happen.
Fine. Any other questions for Mr. Richards? Yes, Councillor Parsons.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, Mr. Richards. Okay. You talked about screening, bunding and tree planting. Within the bunding, it's a fairly level site, so I'm not sure how much cut and fill you'll have. Will the soil for bunding come from within site, or will that be brought onto site?
Yeah, so we've got a neutral cut and fill. So what we're taking off the back, we're putting onto the front to have a level pad to build what the pictures just demonstrated. And so basically from the Connor downside, it will be dropped. So you'll see lesser visual impact, and Roseworthy side it will be built up. So looking up from the bottom, again, the idea is to have lesser visual impact. So we'll use this, to answer your question, we'll use the soil on site to bund around the site to keep everything in, rather than bring stuff in and ship stuff out. Everything in site will be used in the site. Nothing will be taken away, nothing be added.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. No other questions? No. Yes.
If vehicles are going to be directed from the Camborne Junction through the Roseworthy Valley, how many extra vehicles a day do you anticipate will be going through there?
So we could say that our contract with the council vehicles is the largest proportion. The other customers that we have are commercial customers. So like I said, the little tipper trucks, we can't negotiate where they're going to go. That's kind of up to them off their own backs. But But we are very seasonal, a bit like farming. When everything's outgrowing, everyone's out cutting down trees, cutting grass. That's when we get the large proportion of our vehicles. And then in the winter months, it drops right off. So a day like today, nobody's out gardening.
So at its height in the summer tourist
It's-
season, how many vehicles roughly would you?
In the summer, I would say around the 35 to 40 vehicle movements a day. And in the winter months, it might be as low as 6 to 10.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Richards? No? Fine. We now move on to the electoral division member, which is Councillor Heslington. You have, where are we actually? Sorry? Oh, sorry, beg your pardon, on the screen. You have 5 minutes, which at the end of which I will expect you to wind down. And we will give you a
I won't
30-second
need 5
warning.
minutes.
Great.
Can you hear
Lovely.
me?
Okay. When
Can you
go
hear
then.
me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I won't need 5 minutes. I've not got a lot to contribute, to be truthful. So thank you, Chair, and also thank you to the Department for agreeing to hold this committee meeting. Obviously, thank you to the committee members as well. The application has been a protracted affair. I'm sure it's caused stress and anxiety to all involved. There have been some 140 objections to this application from people in the locality. This is by no means the extent of local opposition. I can say quite honestly that everyone, and I mean everyone, I've spoken to in the area does not want this application to be approved. And I think it will be detrimental to their existing environment. I was first approached by this, about this application by a member in the community and before I was elected. As a councillor now, many months on, we are hopeful of a correct decision being made today. Whilst representing constituents, I have tried to stay impartial. We've been informed that no solid material reasons for rejection have emerged. Last evening, I read a document referred to earlier by the case officer. This legal representation contests the idea that there are no material reasons. It gives a long list of discrepancies, etc. Where are we? Not much else to go. Councillors Knight and Gill have contributed to their objections. I wish also to align myself with the residents and support their objections and advocate rejection of this application. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. If you can hold for a moment, are there any questions for clarification for Councillor Heslington? No? Okay, thank you very much for attending. Obviously, you can hang on.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right. We now go into questions of the officers for clarification and any answers you might require on a particular point. So this is questions of the officers. So, yes, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Again, the question of using agricultural land, potentially double cropping land for activities other than agriculture. Do you think that what's been proposed here mitigates that problem, that issue?
Yeah, I think we're quite clear in our view, despite what some of the objectors have said, that it's not 1, 2 or 3A. A is classified as 3B/4, and we feel that this site is a suitable site for other reasons. Obviously, any site will have some landscape impact, but in this particular case, that's been mitigated, and it's only really prominent when you go up the old A30 in its immediate setting.
Any other questions of the officers? Councillor Tudor. Sorry? No, officers now we are on to. Any other questions for the officers? None at all. Sorry, Councillor Pascoe. Sorry, I couldn't see your little finger sticking up
Sorry.
there. Thank you. I can see that.
I'm
Yes.
probably in the dark against the reflection there. No, actually, I just want to ask, and I am concerned about the vehicular movements. I do have experience of this, as you know.
This is questions of
It-
the officers.
it is a question. I'm getting to.
Right,
Catherine.
we've got open debate at the
Yeah,
moment.
it isn't in a debate. Is it possible to be able to put a condition that the vehicle numbers are monitored and that and actually report, as I have in St Pinnock, sent to the parish council each month, so that the number of those vehicles are monitored and maybe restricted, and a restriction on how many they can get to? Just something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there is a condition 3, I believe, that aligns up with the actual supporting transport statement that's been submitted by the applicants, which details, I think, the traffic movements.
What I asked.
Well, I think that will cover the transport movements from where they're directed. You're on about the actual numbers per.
I am, because
Yeah, I
it's
think-
monitoring it monthly
What-
by the parish council.
Mm.
It is a condition on the common tip. It is useful because it does get up to the number, the maximum number. Numbers will increase.
Mm. But obviously from our point of view, I think from the highways point of view, the actual traffic movements are on a safe route. What are you trying to achieve by restricting the numbers?
Well, we're talking about 35. I mean, numbers will go up as the business increases in volume.
So that will be difficult to monitor that, I believe.
Well,
I mean, it's up for members if they want to put something on, but then we have to be careful. Does that stifle the business for the future? And we'll end up having an application come back to reverse that or to vary that condition possibly.
Well, perhaps in the meantime, Ben, you might want to look at the Conan one.
Question of officers, councillor Long.
Yeah, just to carry on from that. Obviously, the reason why we are concerned about the traffic movements is for what happened at Fradden, where you had 38,000 tonnes going past people's houses with on a non-material amendment, and the public didn't even know it was going to be happening until that was approved because it was not done as a non-material amendment at the time. How are we going to protect the people of Roseworthy against undue impact of increased vehicle numbers? And how are we actually going to protect the people of Connor Downs, where I suspect some of the vehicles that come from the west would be more excited about using because it's a lot quicker? So how are we actually going to do it? It's very well saying we're going to monitor it and put a condition on, but those conditions have to be enforceable. So how are they going to be enforced if this is approved?
I think the main larger vehicles are going to be contractually, as you've heard from the applicant, to come from the A30. Obviously, the smaller vehicles, they can't control which way they come. But we are talking about vehicles on a road that is used by numerous vehicles for traffic purposes. And I don't see how this will have any adverse impact on any of the residents by these further vehicles. The road is heavily used as it is, so I don't see how you can say, excuse me?
Sorry, yes. This is a meeting, quasi-judicial meeting, so we expect the public to remain quiet. By all means, if you don't agree with something, you wouldn't be doing this in a theatre, I'm sure, so we don't expect it done here.
Thank you. Sorry. I mean, if members feel they want to limit the numbers, we can consider putting a condition onto that effect.
It's got the aircon and sunroof. I don't can't stand leather seats.
Okay, anything else for the officers? Sorry. Oh, yes. Councillor Tudor.
Yeah, it was a.
Can you stop chatting amongst yourselves? If you can please come up with your own questions.
I haven't got my own question, thank you.
Well, you've been conversing twice recently with the councillor next to you. If you can now ask your questions, thank you.
2.8 litre, I think, round for the M3.
Hopefully that's minuted, thank you. Could the planning officer please sort of reiterate, we've heard from the speakers, and I think one of the main thrusts about this seems to be the location of this application, that seems to be the problem. And one of the speakers, you know, has said, why didn't the applicant explore sort of brownfield sites or alternative sites? And I wondered, for the benefit of the committee and maybe other people here, when we are debating the considerations in a moment, if the planning officer could just sort of reiterate how we consider it. We consider what's in front of us rather than alternatives. I think it might help.
Start and then you can. I assume what you were getting at is we have to consider what the application on its merits that's submitted in front of us.
That's right. And
We
an
haven't
explanation around the sort of legality around that in terms of
obviously
plan consideration.
the report's quite comprehensive. It's gone through every single issue in my view, and we have expert advice from our own internal experts that nobody has raised any significant objections to the scheme as submitted.
Any other questions of the officers? No? Right, in that case, we'll go into open debate. Who would like to start open debate? Mr. Tarrant.
Thank you. Yes. I'm a little concerned about more farmland being taken. I know there's some sort of the grades of the farmland is sometimes can be disputed. I certainly have in the past disputed some of those grades of those farmlands, and why, as Councillor Tudor said, why brownfield sites shouldn't be used for this sort of purpose. And more largely, I'm probably concerned that the community hasn't been brought along more with a project like this, when it's going to impact the community around the area. I know that area very well, so those are my concerns with this development, this project. Thank you.
Next speaker. Councillor Ball.
Thank you. Obviously, I know the site fairly well, being a Camborne man, and I've listened to a lot of people's concerns about traffic in the area. Obviously, as we said, that the contractual vehicles will come in from Camborne West, and any other vehicles that will try to get to the site will also come from Camborne West, because trying to come up through Connor Downs will slow them down that much, but they'll want to come in from the west, turning off the A30. It's a good use of the site, in my opinion. And as to Councillor Tarrant's point, as to engaging with the community, I know the applicant has come into Camborne Town Council and spoke to them numerous occasions about the applicant. So I think that the community have been well informed about what's been going on in the area. So I would be supporting this application.
Thank you. Supporting it, you're not making a proposal at the moment. Was it entirely up to you, was it?
Yeah, I'm happy to propose approval.
Thank you. We'll carry on with the debate. If anyone wishes to second that in the moment. Who would like to speak next? Councillor Tudor.
I think those that have been here for a while on this committee, we will have seen applications come in where there are hundreds of objections from locals, and what we sort of bear in mind is that if the sort of the thrust of those objections are the same, the number doesn't sort of influence the points made, and that can be quite a difficult thing to get your head around, especially if, as we've heard from the divisional member, you know, when you're facing such a number of objections in your area, it can be difficult. But I'm thinking about what was the main thrust behind those objections as a whole in general in considering this. And whilst it is a large number and it is significant, I don't see the points raised in objection to be significant enough to refuse this application. But I'm happy to hear the rest of the debate and what other committee members think.
You're not seconded or anything at this moment, or you wish to?
Not yet.
Yes, you will.
Not yet.
Not yet. Sorry.
Not yet.
Yes, fine. Next speaker, anyone? Yes, Councillor Harrison.
I think my main concerns around the application are the location and the distance from the junction, and the amount of traffic that will be going through the village of Roseworthy. I mean, I'm sure lots of you know it's a beautiful valley. You see the belt of Galloway cattle there. If this site had been closer to the junction, I think I'd feel differently. And I just think it's the impact on the hamlet of Roseworthy. For me, I think it's difficult. They're my thoughts anyway. Thank you.
Fine. Anyone else wish to speak in open debate? Yes, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I'm torn. Yeah, location is an issue. The principle of the activity on that site is admirable, I believe. But whether that's the right location, I'm still torn on the decision. Thank you.
Yeah, I did. You weren't looking. It's Councillor Borden.
Fine.
Have you got a problem?
Fine, where you go.
Thank you. Yes, I'm still concerned about the vehicular movements, and I would like assurance if I am to support this, that something is in place as similar to Conan. Contractual arrangements don't work. If I can give an example to give people an idea of why I keep bringing this up, anything coming in from Conan is meant to come down the A30, go to Dogwalls, round the roundabout and back up through East Taphouse. They don't. They go up the narrow North Hill. So I really think that there needs to be something in place, and also a restriction in the number of vehicles. So there's a target number.
You're looking for a condition attached to.
I am looking for
Right.
because I think
is-
that if I
If we
can
go back to
finish.
planning officer a moment.
I
Sorry, go on then.
I was going to say, because I think that gives the parish council and the residents some comfort, because I wish them every success with their business expanding, but I do know that it can get larger and larger, and then the vehicular movements increase, and that the parish council receive a record of those vehicular movements, as does the one in my area, each month.
Thank you.
All quarter.
Mark, would you like to reply to that?
Yeah, I think we can come up with a condition. There was a condition at Cannon, was it? Holland, sorry, Conan, excuse me. Yeah, there was a condition there that we can adjust. But obviously, we can ask for a scheme to be submitted, and then we can look at the numbers. And then obviously, once we've agreed that, that'd be open to the public inspection, but not to be consulted on, but it'd be open for them to see what we've agreed. Okay.
Right. Is anyone else wishing to speak on this? Because at the moment we got a proposal. Councillor Shannon.
I'd like to pick up on what Dulcie was saying. There are a lot of concerns. The positive points are, of course, there's an employment issue here. It's going to provide local employment in the area. The A30, of course, or the old A30, is this road. It was quite capable of carrying traffic when it was the A30. It's still quite capable of carrying traffic now. And in fact, it has to. When the bypass is closed for all sorts of reasons, then there's an awful lot of traffic that uses that road. It's just a fact of life, but the road itself is quite adequate in actual fact for traffic. It's not a byway, it's not an old lane. And the product is used in agriculture. So I would just like to make that positive points for the situation.
Right, Councillor Parsons.
Thank you, Chair. Right, okay, so we'll address the loss of agricultural land. Loss of agricultural land is always regrettable, but in a time when commodities are on the floor, I fully appreciate and understand why farmers have to diversify, as this business has successfully done for a number of years, so it appears. A little bit uncomfortable with it's a rather large site, so any industrialisation or proliferation of a landscape is always regrettable. It's something that I'm never comfortable with. There are clearly scheduled monuments or SSIs within close proximity, but I don't feel near enough to have or be affected by the impact of this site. Clearly, it's a business. The fact the business is growing shows there is a need, and I think as a council we should be looking, as we do, to encourage green waste recycling and wood composting wherever possible. So, do you know what? Inevitably, traffic is going to be an issue, as Mr. Channing has said and Councillor Ball has said. I don't know the area that well. I know Praise loosely, but I would suspect if it's the old A30, it's going to be able to cope with the traffic. No objection from highways. We're not the experts to push back on that anyway. So I would, to get things moving, second Councillor Ball's application to go with officer's recommendation for approval. And I would probably be comfortable if it's as set out, but if others feel we need to add other conditions, so be it.
Fine, thank you. Councillor Long.
Yeah, it's really on this idea of this condition. You say you can work through a condition, but how will we know what that condition is prior to coming to a decision, unless you've got it written down?
Give us a second, because obviously.
So the reason why I asked that through you, Chair, was the fact that it was implied that leave that with us and we'll work through a condition. But I think we need to hear the wording of that before we come to.
So what I'd say, Councillor Long, and apologies, Chair, we were whispering a bit amongst ourselves. We've pulled up the condition 9 from Conan, and we're just looking at that, and the officers will try and adapt that and come back to you with something. It was quite a long condition as well.
The proposer and seconder want us to do that at this stage.
I wouldn't want to see a business stifled in any way by limiting the amount of traffic that's able to come into the site, because we shouldn't be doing that as a council but I think maybe monitoring of numbers, I think, would be a good idea, and then reporting that back to the parish councils. I think that would be good, but I don't think we should be putting a restriction on any numbers coming into the site.
Fine. If anyone wants to speak, they're welcome to, but I mean, we have a proposer and seconder at the moment, and we're just waiting for these conditions to be addressed. So, who was it next? Was it
Peter Cannon and then
Peter?
Yeah, I think conditions and anything else on that road can be very difficult, because there are lots of Arctics that use that road now. So how are you going to differentiate between one vehicle and another and put this in a document? I don't see it's going to be really possible. There are several farm contractors who have large lorries that use that area all the time and use that road all the time.
Dulcie, you had your hand up.
It's okay, I will defer to my colleague.
Yes.
Fine, thank you. Can I just be clear? It's the amount of vehicles entering the site that are counted, not every vehicle that's on that road. So that's the thing, and there is a good margin.
Yeah. Councillor Long.
Yeah, my concern is to make sure that this condition is enforceable and relevant to the application. But it is important that something is, if it's going to be approved, that something is done to control not only the numbers, but ensure that the routing is adhered to. We can quote as many places across Cornwall where you will find residents who are expecting A and getting B. And I think that is something that we now have the opportunity now to make sure that we have something that is, whilst not affecting the business model of the company, also protects the people, residents who may be adversely affected by that approval. So it's something that we need to work on to make sure we get that.
Right, is it anything different, Peter? I don't mind taking it, but I think we're about to be addressed with a Magna Carta at the moment. All right, so ready to go.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, my advice is that we don't impose a condition, but I understand some of the members have different views on that. So an example may be no development or groundworks associated shall commence until an operational traffic management plan has been submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. The operational traffic management plan shall include vehicle routing to and from the site, details of the mechanism for vehicles counting at the site, details of vehicles accessing and leaving the site directly involved with the development hereby approved, because obviously there'll be other vehicles entering. Measures to minimise the potential for queuing of HGVs onto the public highway. Regular classified turning counts into the approved site at a minimum of 5 yearly intervals. Reviews frequency to be agreed in writing with the LPA. Taking into account the type and number of vehicles associated with the development hereby approved at the approved site, and using the junction compared with the overall general traffic using the aforementioned junction. The approved OTMP shall be adhered to at all times.
Fine. Then first of all, we'll go to the proposer and seconder. Are you, each of you, happy with that, or is there any adjustments you? Yeah, I think first of all, your proposal is attached to your proposal, so it's whether you two are in favour of it at the moment, happy with it.
We're not restricting numbers with this condition, are we?
Well, we're just monitoring it really.
Yeah.
In terms
If
of
we're monitoring, I'm
making
happy
sure there's no
with that.
traffic being. No traffic obviously causing a problem with queuing onto the A30, the old A30.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yes,
I can add,
Yeah.
look, I think the traffic management plan before commencement's good. The monitoring of numbers, okay, it's going to create additional work, and I'm not exactly sure what the benefit is going to be, because it's not going to achieve anything, because we're not going to stop them if there are, because it's like any business, we want it to be successful, don't we? So, but if people are minded to go with that, we'll go with that, and somebody can.
I mean,
come in and click it out.
coming in, Chair, as Mark said, it's about thinking about the tests, isn't it? So, necessary, relevant to planning the development, enforceable, precise, reasonable in all respects. So it's thinking about the tests really. So it's not something that you have to have.
And I would take your point, and I think what would suffice to members would if we controlled the routing of the HGVs rather than the numbers entering the site.
Yeah, and if I can add, what Ben said was about being reasonable. I think we're verging on adding additional stuff that in a way is unreasonable. But having said that, if people feel that's the way forward.
I agree with you as an officer. I think if you amended the condition to control the routing of the HGV vehicles, that would suffice. I mean, when we got a clear steer on what we're actually controlling. So I suggest we amend it to that if you're happy to that. So we just have.
Yeah, happy with that. Yeah.
Right, Councillor Tudor, you put your hand up. Are you still wishing to speak, are you? Or? No. Right, if there's nothing else to be added to that, we do have a proposal and a seconder, and the traffic management
with the extra condition
Yes.
just on the routing of the HGVs.
Yep. Those against? Any abstentions? Yeah. Councillor Martin.
Okay, so the application has been approved by 6 votes in favour, 4 against and 1 abstention. I am aware that there's a fire alarm going off outside, so I just need to check what's going on.
Right.
Evacuating.
Let's
Yeah.
have a 5-minute contribution.
Yeah, apparently people are evacuating, so.
Yeah. Take a comfort break. Right, members, we'll continue with the next application. We do have a couple of changes for officers, so I'll ask them if they will kindly introduce themselves. And I think that includes Sarah, who is on screen. So we'll start. Sorry, oh, she's over there. Beg your pardon. I thought you were on the screen. Right, if you would like to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Matt Stevenson. I'm the group leader for areas 3 and 4.
Hi, good morning. I'm Scott Jenkins, Principal Development Officer, Area 4.
And Sarah? Is she on screen or is it?
Sarah's
She's over there, right. Would you like to say who you are? Just introduce yourself, because you'll be.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sarah Keith. I'm here for the Whitestone Road application.
Fine. Okay, thank you very much. Our next application is PA 24-06436 Mountford House Care House, Cyril Road, Truro. And it's being presented by Scott Jenkins. What's to you, Scott?
Thank you, Chair. Get my presentation. So this is a planning application submitted by Sanctuary Affordable Housing. It's for the redevelopment of the site to provide a new 54-bed care home with parking, landscaped gardens. It's a full planning application and officer recommendation is approval subject to conditions. So to provide a little bit of background to the application, it's over a year since the statutory deadline ended. The scheme originally submitted was for a 57-bed care home. However, there were concerns expressed by officers and third parties over the mass and impact upon residential amenities. The applicant took on board feedback and revised the scheme through, and which ended up removing 3 beds from the scheme and a reduction in the northern wing. In addition, the applicant undertook a detailed assessment to demonstrate the scheme's acceptability in this regard. Subsequent to that, the City Council were reconsulted and ended up supporting the scheme. So in terms of the key considerations, it responds to a critical need for specialist care accommodation and delivers social and economic benefits aligned with Cornwall Council's objectives. To provide some context to this, at present, demand for specialist care accommodation is close to and in some areas exceeds available supply. The Council's evidence indicates an identified shortfall of around 1,200 beds county-wide by 2033.
Chair, I appreciate their whispering, but it is quite distracting.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry, Councillor. I was whispering for a reason, actually. Apologies. So I think I was advising Councillor Tarrant, and we think he probably has an interest on this application as well, and that he should leave. It's his call, but
it's the care sector, and I
had
a care home, so I think there may be a conflict of interest here.
Apologies for interrupting. I think it was helpful.
Chair, would you agree with that, Chair, or?
Happy if you are.
Yeah, it's.
What I would ask was, is if you could sit in the next row back. Away from
Okay, leave all together.
Right, okay, yeah.
I'm not sure. Is it really an interest? I mean, we've got farmers here on the, that talk about
I think
farmland.
Discussed this, Councillor.
Yeah, so
we've already discussed it.
So I'm sorry to interrupt Scott's presentation. So my advice is that it is, Councillor Tudor. There's potential issues, aren't there, around competition, around employment and business interests. So our advice is that it will be. I mean, you could argue there isn't proximity in this case because it's not in the same town. Application 3 certainly is, but that's our advice. Ultimately, it's with Councillor Tarrant, and I think he's happy to take that and to leave. So, yeah.
I do think Councillor Tudor does have a point. There's lots of farmers voting on farming things earlier, wasn't there? That's true. I just wanted to put it on the table to make sure that I'm not breaching any conflict of interest. So, yeah, Councillor Parsonage wants to come on.
If I could add, if I can't vote on applications that apply to land use, I have a problem.
Exactly.
So Chair, what I'd say is it's a matter for individual members, isn't it? So I've given Councillor Tarrant his advice. With respect, it's not for other members to comment on that, and it's for Councillor Tarrant to take a decision.
So what is your decision?
I think this one is far enough. My business is in Bodmin and this is in Truro, so I think we're far enough away. If my other councillors are happy with that, I'll stay then. Thank you.
So just to reiterate, Councillor Tarrant, it's with respect, it's not for the other members, it's for you. And I can understand your reasoning for that, and it's up to you. All right, so.
Thank you. I'll stay then. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so these are the key considerations. Just to provide a bit of background again, the application has been ongoing for over a year subsequent to the deadline. The reason for this, the scheme originally submitted was for a 57-bed care home. There was concerns expressed by officers over the mass of the scheme and the impact on residential amenities. Subsequent to that, the applicant took on board feedback and revised the scheme, which ended up a reduction in the northern wing and also a removal of 3 beds from the overall scheme. In addition, the applicant undertook a detailed assessment to demonstrate the scheme's acceptability on amenity grounds. Further consultation with the City Council resulted in, on this additional information, resulted in support for the scheme. So the first consideration is it responds to a critical need for specialist care accommodation and delivers social and economic benefits aligned with Cornwall Council's objectives. To provide a little bit more context to this, at present, demand for specialist care accommodation is close to and in some areas exceeds available supply. So the Council's evidence indicates an identified shortfall of around 1,200 beds county-wide by 2033 and is considered to face a critical care capacity and quality crisis. So this places ongoing pressure on existing care facilities, on hospital discharge pathways, and the Council's ability to meet its statutory deadlines under the Care Act. So this application for a 54-bed care home would directly contribute towards addressing that imbalance by providing purpose-built specialist accommodation that is designed to meet modern care standards. In addition to meeting that need, the proposal also delivers wide social and economic benefits, including local employment opportunities, investment in care infrastructure, and reduced reliance on out-of-county placements, all of which align with Cornwall Council's strategic priorities. So the other key considerations being the redevelopment of a well-known brownfield site previously used for a care home provision, the protection of residential amenity with particular regard to overshadowing, including sunlight and daylight, overbearingness, overlooking privacy and noise, the quality in design in respect to the character and appearance of the area, including the adjoining conservation area, and accessibility and car parking. This is an extract showing the site's strategic location in relation to the centre of Truro. The site's approximately 0.8 kilometres to the northwest of the city centre. And in terms of the Truro and Kenwyn neighbourhood development plan, it falls within the Truro settlement boundary. This is a little bit closer site plan perspective of the site. As you'll note, it's surrounded on all site boundaries by residential properties. Should be noted that the cross-shaped building on the site, which comprised the former care home, that contained 36 beds, has now been demolished and the site has been cleared. For context, that building was closed in 2022 as the accommodation was deemed no longer fit for purpose, no viable. So the site is identified as a brownfield site, again in the Truro and Kenwyn neighbourhood development plan, and is also adjacent to the conservation area, which is for Kenwyn Road, within a tree preservation order and a critical drainage area. This is just the context of the site in terms of site aerial perspective. So this is the proposed site plan. It shows the 54-bed care home centred in the site, and it comprises a T-shaped building. Site area extends to approximately 0.4 hectares. as previous, the vehicle access is via Cyril Road, which is a private road, with turning and parking to the east of the site. Parking is to comprise 22 on-site spaces, including a disabled space, visitor space, and electric charging, with cycle storage facilities. The quantum of parking is in line with the Cornwall Council's car parking guidance, and vehicle tracking demonstrate vehicles can enter and exit in forward gear. Relevant conditions are attached to ensure parking and cycle storage is secured at appropriate times, along with a scheme to be submitted for the resurfacing and improvement of Cyril Road. A scheme to resurface and improve Cyril Road is to be agreed prior to occupation and carried out prior to the occupation of 13 bedrooms. So to the rear of the building is a two-tiered landscape garden, which includes new planting, retained planting, and biodiversity enhancements. To the north of the site, it is proposed to house an air source heat pump and substation to facilitate the scheme. Noise assessments support the application, which demonstrate no in-principle concerns. However, the exact details for these services have yet to be confirmed. Therefore, planning condition seeks to assess and secure these details prior to installation. Proposed elevations. The elevation at the top is the principal elevation of the building, which faces east, and the elevation at the bottom is the southern elevation of the building. In terms of design, it's a contemporary approach with the use of a buff brick and slate on elevations, with the roof comprising a natural slate. The recess elements of the roof are to comprise a zinc metal. It shows that the windows at first and it should be noted that the windows at first and second floor levels on the gable ends on all the wings serve communal space, such as the corridor and non-habitable rooms. These windows are to be conditioned to be obscurely glazed. With regard to the principal elevation at the top, there is a condition added to retain the rooms which have been identified as bedrooms at first and second floor levels in order to safeguard the amenities of neighbouring properties to the west. The final set of elevations. The elevation at the top is the rear elevation of the building, which faces west, and the elevation at the bottom is the northern elevation of the building. Again, the windows at first and second floor levels on the gable ends on the wings serve communal space, such as the corridor and, again, non-habitable room. These windows are, again, obscurely glazed via a planning condition. This is a proposed site section for the scheme, which includes relevant properties. The pink dashed line indicates the mass of the original building, which can be seen on the top site section, which has been reduced to what is now shown. The red dashed line indicates the mass of the original building, which has now been demolished. So this is an extract of the proposed ground floor. There are 8 bedrooms, a dining room, lounge, and multi-function space, along with a number of operational rooms such as offices, storage, wash facilities. At first floor level, there's 24 bedrooms, a dining room with 3 lounges, along again with a number of operational rooms such as a nurse room and general storage room. And at second floor level, similar to the first floor level, 24 bedrooms, a dining room, 3 lounges, a number of operational rooms such as a nurse room and storage room. So with regard to the scheme's impact upon neighbouring properties amenities, the application is now supported by a daylight, sunlight and overshadowing impact assessment. This follows the methodology prescribed by the Building Research Establishment Guide for site layout planning for daylight and sunlight. So this assessment, which is outlined in detail in the report, also includes detailed topographical surveys of neighbouring gardens to ensure a robust assessment. Notwithstanding this, the applicant did provide indicative shadowing plans which illustrate the shadowing impacts from the previous building at the site and the building now submitted. So this plan shows shadowing at 9 AM, which is running along the left, 12 PM in the centre and 3 PM on the right. The building at the top is the previous building, and then the building at the bottom is the building now proposed, and that's during the equinox stage. So similar layout again, with 9 AM, 12 PM, 3 PM, but this is during summer solstice. And again, same layout, but during the winter solstice. So in terms of site photographs, this is taken from Kenwyn Road, looking down Cyril Road. Site is can be just seen with that kind of blue rectangle in the centre. This is looking down the access lane, which forms the southern boundary. The property known as Boskeen is on the left, with the site obviously on the right. So this is a view from the access lane in the south, looking towards the into the site, essentially to the north. Again, from this access lane, looking back towards the southern boundary, the property known as Boskeen to the right. This is just as you come out of that access lane back onto Cyril Road. Property known as St Mary's Bungalow is visible. This is walking up into the site, looking northeast along the eastern boundary. The property known as Lanherne is visible. This is from when within the site, looking south towards the properties which bound the southern boundary of the site. This is looking northwest from within the site, looking at the properties which form essentially the western boundaries to the site. Again, same direction for the photo, but just slightly closer to the western boundary. This is looking north central from the site to the properties off Chainwarp Drive to the north. Again, this is looking north from within the site, travelling toward the northern boundary of the site. And then again, looking north from within the site towards those properties a little bit closer to the northern boundary. So in terms of balance of considerations, as highlighted at the start of the report presentation, this scheme responds to a critical need for specialist care accommodation for an ageing population in Truro and Cornwall, delivers social and economic benefits aligned with Cornwall Council's objectives, the efficient reuse of a brownfield site in a sustainable urban location, with design and visual impact. There's an improved massing. It's considered sympathetic to local context and preserves the Cornwall the conservation area setting. The daylight sunlight assessment confirms no material harm to neighbours, and overlooking privacy is protected by the layout and design, and also through the imposition of conditions. There's no objection from the Highway Authority. There's considered sufficient parking, safe access and turning has been demonstrated, along with securing the resurfacing of Cyril Road. There's a 37% biodiversity net gain enhancement on site in regard to the habitat units. The building put forward has now achieved a BREEAM excellent rating, and other matters such as noise and drainage proposed to be managed by conditions. The amendments to the scheme have, as mentioned, resulted in the City Council supporting. So the recommendation is approved subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Scott. Our first public speaker is Anthony Randall. Thank you, Mr. Randall. You've got 3 minutes. You will get 30-second warning before the end of it. Okay, so away you go. Thank you.
Thank you. This is not NIMBYism. We all agree with the concept for the need of a care home, but one which is not to the unacceptable detriment of surrounding properties in terms of the size, the massing, the overshadowing, and the overbearing nature. The previous care home was single-storey. This is 3 stories high. The increase in height is 6 to 7 meters. Its size and mass is completely incongruous with the surrounding low-density residential properties. It is overdevelopment. It's an increase of 125% in floor area. The planning officer's report downplays the increase in the magnitude of the bulk and height, and therefore the assessment of the material harm. It is over-reliant on BRE compliance and doesn't properly weigh the very substantial increase in height, mass and institutional scale relative to neighbours. There are a total of 26 overlooking windows, an invasion of privacy both into surrounding properties and into the home itself from those properties. The officer's report only partially addresses the privacy issue without taking into account all the overlooking windows and balcony. Light pollution will be an issue 24/7, and noise from the large heat pump and substation close to properties in the area will have a detrimental effect on health and well-being of surrounding residents. The report fails to give a full transparent account of privacy and light pollution impacts, especially at night, and therefore does not adequately discharge the policy tests in policies 12 and 13 on protecting existing residential amenity. Neither does the report properly deal with the environmental officer's objection about non-compliance with noise limits. And the daylight sunlight shadowing issue. From more than one property, the proposed development will be above the required 25-degree angle taken from the lowest window, let alone from conservatories. The assessment also shows that the grounds of the care home itself won't receive the required amount of sunlight at the solstice at any time of the day. The outlook for neighbours will be simply to walls and windows. Mr. Henderson's photograph that we supplied to you clearly proves this. Another detrimental effect on health and well-being. Imagine, please, if you would, how would you feel looking out from your property to this? It will be unacceptable material harm. We refer you to two previous decisions relating to care provision this
30
year.
seconds left.
Your officers recommended approval for both of them, but members refused on the basis of the adverse impact on neighbouring properties in terms of size and mass. We ask you to recognise the unacceptable harm on our properties and the surrounding area now. And please do not grant permission to Sanctuary to build this 54-bed care home via this application, which is simply too big in its design for this restricted site, causing unacceptable harm by its overbearing scale. There are other locations more suitable.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Rundle. Questions of the speaker for clarification purposes? Does anyone want to? Councillor Long.
Yes, apologies for my back to you, but obviously it was microphone, it's a lot easier. Is your objection the fact that it's the 3 stories as opposed to potentially 2 or 1 story, or is it the location of it as a whole? Because it right at the end of your speech, the reason why I'm saying that is you mentioned the fact that this is the wrong place, but earlier you talked about the size and massing. So which is it your objection in principle or objection to the size of it?
The issue really is the size and the mass of it. As I said at the start, we don't object in principle to a care home, but this one is completely incongruous to the surrounding area. We had no issues with the previous care home, which was single story, but this 3rd story will mean that we will be completely overlooked.
Thank you. Thank you. I think the answer's been given, has it not? Thank you, Councillor Long. Any other questions of the speaker for clarification? No, thank you. Next speaker, Dr. Keith Mitchell. Hi, good day. 3 minutes, the same as before, and you'll get a 30-second warning when your time is about to come up, all right?
Thank you, Chairman.
Wait.
I'm here to say on behalf of the local residents that we are in favour of, in principle, of a care home, but the proposed home contains too many residents for the on-site parking available. This will lead to a daily overflow of parked cars, which will cause unacceptably dangerous conditions for cars and pedestrians in neighbouring Cyril Road. It will also adversely affect neighbouring High Trehaven, visitors to the home and the patients themselves. I'd like to refer members to my written submission, which I hope elucidates and illustrates what I'm trying to convey here. So how many cars will overflow from the home? Well, the old Mountford house had 36 beds and 20 parking spaces and regularly overflowed into Cyril Road. The new plan is for 50% more beds and only 2 extra parking spaces. So we estimate around 15 cars will need to park off-site. In the absence of a realistic or enforceable travel plan, there is little reason to believe that people's transport habits will change. So Cyril Road, private road, no road markings, no mechanism for parking enforcement. It also has no lighting and half of it has no pavement. In the transport document, the highway officer comments that overspill parking in Cyril Road will have to be controlled. This has not proven possible. So as matters stand, it will fill with cars every day.
And we residents know what happens if Cyril Road fills with cars. As you leave Mountford House, you'll have cars parked on your left all the way up to the junction with a busy main road. So you arrive at the junction on the wrong side of the road, facing off against cars turning in. Sometimes a car will park on your right-hand side of the junction, also making matters even more dangerous. So that's 6 cars parked 9 to go. The next road down is Hartrehaven. That has spaces next to the nursery and primary schools there. These are rarely filled, except for twice a day when these spaces are used by parents dropping off or collecting their kids. And this is already pretty chaotic, so how much more dangerous it'll become when they arrive to find these spaces are taken by care home vehicles is currently untested. Now, let's consider a visitor for an elderly resident, themselves likely to be elderly. Finding no space in the home or Cyril Road, they find a space in Hartrehaven. They then have to walk 300 metres up a steep hill, then dodge the traffic up the middle of Cyril Road between parked cars to reach the home. So these visitors seem likely to be sufficiently discouraged that they avoid visiting, leading
30
to
seconds
isolation for the residents with predictable negative consequences. So finally, please check out the swept path analysis for the site itself. Vehicles will confusingly drive on the right. Large vehicles would have to reverse over neighbours' driveways to manoeuvre around cars parked in spaces that are too small for modern cars, and one protruding car will be enough to prevent large vehicles from turning around, so they'll have to reverse right back to the main road to escape. Again, I refer to my circulated document.
Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions for clarification of Dr. Mitchell? Councillor Tudor.
Hello, sorry, I'll have to face away from you. You went Cyril Road is a private road. Do you know if residents in the past have tried to organise things so that there are parking restrictions on the road? I've had in my patch, I have private roads where residents have sort of got together and talked to the landowner and have, considering that a care home has been there for a long time.
I have no awareness that that has been done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Dr. Mitchell, hello. Take on board what you've said about the traffic. Possibly a question I should have had for the previous speaker, but you clearly are a local gentleman. With regards to the scale and the mass of the development, do you feel that if it had been 2 stories, it would have been more acceptable for developments, or do you still feel that the overbearing and shadowing impacts would have or would remain?
I think with a 2-story building, we'd have very little grounds for objection to this application. That would be acceptable, certainly to me.
Thank you.
In that case, we'll move on to, where are we? Mrs. Alison Olds. Yes, well, you have 3 minutes and the usual 30 minutes. Sorry, yeah, 3 minutes and 30-second warning.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good morning. I'm Alison Olds, Senior Development Manager for Sanctuary, a registered charity committed to providing housing, care and support for those who need it most. As we know, Cornwall has a huge need for high quality care provision, and sadly the demand far outstrips the supply. Our new Mountford House proposal directly addresses that need for Truro and the wider county under the Cornwall Care Strategic Partnership Programme, which aims to deliver 7 new care homes in Cornwall over 10 years. Under a quarter of the existing care homes in Cornwall are purpose-built, meaning en-suites are in short supply and wet rooms are often shared by several residents. At Mountford, every room will be en-suite, ensuring privacy, dignity and comfort for residents. The home will include excellent supporting facilities such as a cinema and entertainment room, cafe and landscape gardens, which create a safe, accessible and welcoming environment. The care home will create local jobs and strengthen the local economy, and importantly, we will build and operate the new care home, guaranteeing our commitment, long-term quality and accountability. We have positively engaged with the local authority through the planning process. Feedback on our original scheme from the planning officers led us to reduce the size and scale of the proposed building from a 57-bed care home to 54, addressing concerns about massing. Although the proposal is still higher than the original care home, this is mitigated by the building footprint being smaller and in most cases further away from the site boundary and in turn surrounding neighbours. We have engaged with the local community and adjoining neighbours, particularly those who kindly allowed us to undertake the technical assessment of their properties, which has enabled us to establish the impact of the proposal in relation to daylight, sunlight and overshadowing. The outcome of the studies has been positive and show a negligible impact of the revised proposal compared with the original building. Sustainably located brownfield sites are notoriously difficult to deliver, particularly with zero impact to the immediate neighbours, and Mountford is no exception. We have worked incredibly hard to ensure that we have addressed the concerns raised by the planning officer, neighbours, Truro City Council and wider community. I am proud to stand here and present this scheme to you today, not just as a senior development manager, but as a local person who has first-hand experience of the care crisis we are facing in Cornwall. This scheme promises to deliver a new model of care for Cornwall, a scheme that is 100% planning policy compliant, a scheme that now has the support of Truro City Council following our engagement and redesign and the support of the planning officer. I believe that our new care home will make an enormous difference to the lives of older people and their families in Truro, and I respectfully ask for your support to deliver this much needed high quality care facility for our county. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions of the speaker. I would just like to have one question for you, Alison. You heard the suggestion about reducing the height of the building and getting rid of the top floor. Can you tell us how that would be, if possible, or what it would do for the viable financial future?
Quite simply, it would make it non-viable. We have worked extremely hard over the last 12 months with the planning officer and our consultants to reach a design that's reduced, and it actually is no closer now than the original care home, which has the is there on screen for you, and actually on the upper floors we're further away from the boundary than the original care home was. It had a external concrete staircase on that elevation to the left as you're looking at the screen, and that was right out to that red dotted line. So as you can see by the redesign, we have pulled that northerly wing in to mitigate the impact, particularly on that northerly wing was considered overbearing and an issue with the planning officer. But any smaller would be unviable.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Apologies again for my back to you. I'm right in saying that the road access road is private.
Correct.
And I understand that you're going to tarmac it and that sort of thing. How are you going to deal with the transportation issue, the parking issue, with the members of staff you have and the visitors you have, when you've only got 2 extra spaces compared with a 50% increase in number of people staying there? Whilst it's easy to say it's travel compliant, Cornwall is not travel compliant in the fact that our rural isolation means the use of the motor vehicle at the moment is still being used. So how are you going to, first of all, deal with the parking, and how are you going to enforce it given that it's a private road?
Firstly, the car parking that's provided, they're all accessible. Nobody's blocking each other in. So the previous Mountford House would often be double parked. People that didn't want to be in that position, I assume, would use Cyril Road, for example. And obviously, I cannot comment how Cornwall Care used to operate that care home. That was before Sanctuary acquired. We bought this site as a vacant care home because it was not fit for purpose and non-operational. I know that my colleague who will speak, they arrange their shift patterns around public transport. So if a particular staff member needs to rely on a specific bus, their shift patterns are tailored specifically to allow for that to happen, so that nobody's left missing their key, public transport home. So whether that's a bus or a train, I know we at Sanctuary do consider that when we're looking at shift patterns and their availability to travel. So we really encourage the use of public transport where possible.
Well, a question for you, Chair.
Yes.
Are you going to therefore restrict the parking to solely visitor parking then, and ensure that all workers actually travel by public transport and park in the approved car parks at the edge of the city rather than block that area off?
No, and I'm not going to sit here and promise you that we will, because that's just not practical to promise that we'll ensure every member of staff uses public transport. We do have visitor spaces which have been included in the plans following our consultation with Truro City Council. So that was a post City Council amendment. The parking will be managed effectively on site.
Or yes, Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you very much for that presentation. It's just really for clarification. I think I know the answer to this one, because you do say challenge of an ageing population. So I just wondered if the service user demographic was principally the elderly, not sort of was it learning disabilities as well, or?
No, elderly.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Councillor Tudor. Yes, sorry, Councillor Tudor.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, it's something, if you could address something that the last speaker said, because I've sat in and thought, I'm very familiar with this site, and probably pass the entrance several times a week. And in the former Mountford House, where my grandmother was there long time ago,
yeah,
put it on the eve of her 100th birthday. But we heard said that the last speaker, in answer to some questions, said that the former Mountford House was single story, and that a 2-story design would be more acceptable. But if my memory is correct, that the former Mountford House was 2-story.
It was indeed. The topography of the site there is quite a challenging brownfield site, and there is quite a fall east to west, particularly across the site. So whilst it might have appeared single story to the rear, there was actually kind of a 6 to 8 foot drop, and there was a lower ground floor. So from the front, you can see now on screen, and there was also obviously that very ugly chimney that with that wing that protruded out towards Lanherne, which was the bungalow that Scott referenced. We've pulled that back in and condensed the footprint as best we can. So indeed, Mountford House was never single story. It was always 2 stories. Thank you.
I have another question.
Yes.
Thank you. How long has this application sort of been in the pipeline? Because I know there've been several iterations, haven't there?
We initially submitted in August 2024,
Yeah.
and we have been working with the planning officers and the wider community to arrive at a point that is policy compliant, acceptable to the City Council and ourselves from a viability perspective. We're not looking to secure a ticket and disappear into the sunset. We need to deliver a planning permission that we can fulfil and deliver the service for the county.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Could you just confirm, please, how many new jobs this development would provide if approved?
I haven't got these figures to hand, I have to admit, but from memory it was around 30 to 35, but I can come back with a definite clarification if members would like that.
Okay, any other questions for the speaker? If not, we'll move on to our next speaker, and that is Ms. Pauline Shilson. 30-second warning. Thank you.
So I'm Pauline Shilson. I'm a care home manager, and I've worked for Cornwall Care or Sanctuary Care for 19 years. Since Sanctuary acquired Cornwall Care back in October 2022, there have been substantial reinvestment in our care homes across Cornwall. However, it is clear some buildings like Mountford were not suitable for renovation or improvement. There is an acute shortage of quality care accommodation across Cornwall. Only 15% of our care homes have modern wet room care facilities compared to 25% in Devon. Our population over the age of 85 is 38% higher than the national average. Basic features found in modern care homes outside of Cornwall, such as ensuite rooms, activity areas and accessible outside space, are just some of the essentials, but not luxuries, we should expect for our families and friends. Winter pressures, particularly concerning hospital admissions and bed blocking, are very real challenges, highlighted by CQC in their 24 inspection. Such challenges are linked to the limited supply of available bed spaces, and planning permission to redevelop this former care home site to provide 54 bed spaces is a positive step towards more capacity and a new modern care facility. Yes, the care home is larger and has more beds than the previous building on this site. However, it is smaller than the 60+ bed space care home usually developed to be commercially viable. Resident concerned about parking, we are carers who live and work locally, and many of my colleagues walk to work or cycle. In fact, many care staff do not drive. They car share or use the bus. Across Cornwall, we have adapted our shift patterns to coordinate with local bus service timetables, including use of college buses, to enable our carers who don't drive to reach their place of work. I speak to you today as a care home manager, and I see day to day how important the right environment is for our older vulnerable people. And whilst as a team we strive to provide that caring and safe environment, we cannot operate in buildings that are designed and built over 40 years ago when standards and expectations were so very different. You've heard today from those objected to the proposed building. There's a group of people who are not represented here today, and they are the care residents of the future and the family of loved ones urgently needing that care. 1 in 3 of us in the next 20 years will face care home provision for ourselves or our family member in our lifetime. Members of the committee, for those residents and our families, I ask you to please approve our planning application today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions of the speaker, clarification? Councillor Channing.
Thank you very much for that. Can you just confirm why this location is so suitable as a care home? Is it the transport arrangements, because we have a train service and a good bus service?
Yeah, transport's a key factor. Also, we're next to a hospital that is daily in crisis. On an average day in just my care home alone in Weybridge, I get 10 referrals for care bed placement where people are in need. People are bed blocking and spending hours in ambulances, so we need that provision, particularly in Truro. People that need beds that can go from hospital can then go to rehabilitation in a nursing home for 6 weeks and may get home. They may need long-term care provision. So it is that location, and bus and transport links do help with the trains and buses.
So it ticks a lot of boxes.
It does indeed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was interested when you said there would be possibly 35 employment. I wondered if you envisaged that as local employment or out of county, putting a strain on local accommodation. That would be a consideration for me. I wonder if you could answer that, please.
I believe it would be more for local employment. I run a 37-bedded care home, and I have 20 staff on shift on any site on any given day. So although I employ 70 people in my care home in Weybridge, which would be probably the average for this site, only 20 people are needed on site a day to enhance the wellbeing of our residents.
Fine. Anything else for the speaker for clarification? No? No. Thank you very much. Thank you. We now move on to the divisional member, and that is Councillor Webb. You will have 5 minutes maximum, Steve, and we will give you a 30-second warning before the end. So when you're ready, away you go.
They don't move any closer.
No, they don't.
Thank you, Chair, committee members. I speak to say representing the residents of the ward, Moresque and Treavan. I will be.
Sorry, just a second, Steve. Sorry.
Don't whisper between us. I get it. Sorry. Apologies.
Sorry. Right. Okay. Right. Fine. Okay. Sorry. Start again if you wish.
No, that's right. I will be repeating some of the things that the residents have already brought up, but I think they're really important to bring up. I want to start by thanking the applicant. The residents appreciate the engagement so far. We also want to explicitly acknowledge and welcome the fact that the applicant has already listened and made some changes. This shows they recognise the massing is an issue. It also shows there may be room for movement. We also respect that they have attempted to address the noise and parking issues by commissioning reports and travel plans. They clearly recognise that these are genuine constraints for the site. However, the residents' concern is that while the applicant has recognised these problems, they haven't actually solved them yet. Take the noise issue. We respect that the applicant has submitted noise assessments, but we must look at the response from our own public protection officer. They explicitly objected. Stated that the application is currently non-compliant with the council's noise standards. Item 35 of the report. They warned that the assessments were flawed and that the substation hadn't even been assessed. Instead of fixing this before coming to committee, we have condition 14, which asks for the details to be sorted out later. The residents feels that this puts them in a dangerous position. If we approve a non-compliant scheme today, we are going against our own advice. A promise to fix later is not the same as a guarantee of protection now. On massing, we acknowledge the reduction of the 54 beds. They have moved in the right direction, but the building remains significantly larger than the previous one. The residents proposed a significant compromise, removing just 3 more rooms, 16, 17 and 18, to pull the bulk back from the neighbour Boskeen. By making this change, the proposal is more likely to reflect the site's physical context, although still quite mass, as required by policy E4 of the Truro and Cameron Neighbourhood Plan. Finally, on parking, we respect the applicant has submitted a travel plan and tried to manage traffic. They know the site is very constrained. But the reality is 22 spaces for 54 beds, visitors, staff, maintenance and crossover. Residents fear this will force parking on the Searle Road, a private, quiet road that cannot take it. Cornwall local plan states development must provide safe and suitable access and not cause adverse impacts. Relying on the travel plan to manage a deficit of spaces is a risk that the residents will have to live by every day. So to conclusion, in summary, Chair, the residents are not saying no, they are saying not quite yet. The applicant has moved on the bed numbers, which we thank them for, but they need to move just a little bit further to meet the compromise. They have recognised the noise problem, but they haven't proven a solution. The residents feel the application is unfinished business. The noise details are missing and the scheme is currently non-compliant. The massing is still too aggressive. The parking relies on optimism rather than maths. It is a quiet private road, and that this will have impact on all those living by. But thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions of the speaker, Councillor Channing?
I asked the planning officer to address that comment.
Yes.
Councillor Webb, thank you for that comprehensive speech there. Given that you have been the Cornwall councillor for work which covers the Civil Road and Travern Road area for 8, 9 months now, and then before that, of course, you sit on for a city council. Have the residents, and given the sort of parking problems on residential streets in Truro in general, and I know about them because I live not far from here actually, have any of the residents sort of lobbied you as a councillor or the city council that you know of about parking restrictions for that private road? You know, residents parking scheme or other TROs in the past? Are they sort of on it, if you like?
We have a large issue widely in Truro, but there's constraints Searle Road. No, but there's currently no nursing home there. It's just a brownfield site. So
yes, but sorry, let me rephrase. I wasn't being clear. I know that residential roads in Truro in that area are being used by people to park but literally sort of parking for people that work in Truro and then walk in. I live a little bit further out and it happens on my road. So I was just wondering if that's been sort of brought as a problem.
yes, the whole bowl of Truro, all the estates, and this is no exception here. People are using that to work in Truro and visit Truro, and it's an issue all around Truro, and this is no exception.
Specifically Civil Road, if those residents contacted you, the problem?
No, not them for this in particular, but around that area.
I'd like to bring our officer in, Matt, at the moment, because there were some points you made, Councillor Webb, that I think he would like to discuss openly with you. Over to you, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, obviously there's questions of officers anyway coming up, but
Yeah,
so,
that's the next thing, yeah.
so please bring up anything then as well. I think just in terms of noise, that's probably something more simply that I can address. basically condition 14 requires them to submit details to overcome those issues raised, and I think it's paragraphs 119 to 121 of the report that sets out why we're doing it that way. Basically, they don't know the exact equipment they're going to use at that stage. Obviously, it could be a little while away until they get to that point of getting contractors in and doing the work. So all those details of mechanical, ventilation and the air source heat pump have to be submitted and approved by the council. Obviously, we'll undertake consultation with Public Health and Protection, and we wouldn't discharge that condition until they were satisfied it met those standards. I could also offer to committee to run that through the chair, vice chair and the ward member as well, if that's they want that further oversight of that work. So I think that's the point to make in respect of noise. It's not unusual to condition that for further details in the way that we've done. I know it's been brought up about the size of the building, and you've already had explained that part of the original old building was 2-storey. This is the 2.5-storey building. Some parts of it are 2-storey as well in respect to the ground levels, as you can see there. So I just want to clarify that it's not a full 3-storey building. I also noted that obviously there's 2-storey properties in the area. And I think on the photograph at the start, there's a 2.5-storey building as you enter into Cyril Road as well. So although obviously the footprint's bigger on this, there are other buildings of a similar height. I think that's probably all I've got to say for now. So we'll take questions, and then if there's anything remaining at the end of that, we can come back at that point.
So quickly returning to any questions of Councillor Webb. Who was that? Sorry. Sorry, Councillor Nolan, you're in this area.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to speak as a neighbouring ward member of Truro, Boscawen and Redanwick, and I know the site well, having been on the site visit that the applicants very kindly arranged. So if you let me continue, I'll speak on it. I went along the site visit. It's a very tight site indeed. You wouldn't start there, I think is the way I'd put it. But they are trying to build on there, and as you've heard from Councillor Webb, it's a massive development that will undoubtedly have an impact on residents with noise and disturbance. We've heard a good deal about the need for these extra beds, but I just mentioned that 500 yards from here, we're building a care home and assisted living development covering the entirety of Truro City Football Club's pitch and car parking arrangements, a massive development. And the only issue we had with that was that it wasn't on a bus stop, which we're busy addressing so that they can get in and out of town from there. There were no objections from anyone because it's a proper, sensible place to put something. We're not shoehorning it in to a difficult place. But if you somehow accept that this isn't overdevelopment, that this isn't going to impact on people's daily lives with a 24/7 operation making noise and parking and all the rest of it, I'd ask you to look at the conditions that are attached. They haven't put yet in the construction plan, and when they do, it will allow for construction Monday to Friday and Saturday mornings. And I'd ask you to exclude Saturday mornings from it if you can, because as you've gone about your business here, you'll have heard the constant thumping from the massive site we're building next door. Can you imagine that if you were living surrounding something like that going on as they're constructing? It'd be awful, and it's going to make life miserable for them. And I don't really accept that we can condition the noise and impact of this site at a later date. All that mitigation should be in place now in front of you for you to assess it, not told officers will deal with it at some point in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions for either of our speakers on this, local speakers? Yes, Councillor Parsons.
Thank you, Chair. So, Councillor Webb, I'm just intrigued to know what the building is there. If you can say, is that a community hall that's in close proximity, or is that a home?
That's a bowling green. That's
the bowling
community,
green.
yeah.
Okay, thank you, because I did see that there were meetings held at the bowling green, so that makes I just can't see a bowling green there.
Operational noise, I've had assurance locally in my patch in Helston. The modern equipment used now for ventilation, heat source, etc., is much more acceptable as far as noise levels are concerned. Would you agree with that, Gary?
Yeah, it's definitely getting better, but clearly we're not going to approve something that's going to cause a nuisance. So we'll scrutinise that equipment at that time. As I say, it's not an issue about the general noise from the operation itself. It's more specifically to those extraction systems and the ground source heat pump, air source heat pump that they're using for energy. So they're obviously getting more common, aren't they, and better, but we'd certainly do what we need to do to ensure that that's below the right levels.
Next question. Yes, Councillor Channing.
Officers generally, would any development on this site cause a similar level of concerns?
I mean, it's obviously a brownfield site. It's going to get built on by something, isn't it, at some point? So there's always going to be those construction issues. So again, we've put that construction management plan in as usual to get those details about that. You've heard the neighbouring ward member mention about Saturdays. That's something for you to consider. If you think that's inappropriate, then that's a decision you can make about those hours and days of operation. It may be that you can do certain things on a Saturday that are not so noisy, some operations. So that's all for that construction management plan to look at in more detail to minimise and mitigate those impacts during the construction period. In terms of the general use of the site, as I say, it's clearly going to come forward. I think our preference would be that it came forward as a care home C2 use. There may be a more open C3 use. Potentially that would have more issues for neighbouring properties, I would guess, than this. But the development before you is recommended for approval. Yeah, it's acceptable, but clearly there's a massive push to develop brownfield sites in general, as densely as possible. And to be clear, we're not saying this is a balance of considerations that there is an impact to neighbours, but the benefits outweigh it. What we're saying is this scheme is acceptable because it doesn't have material harm to those neighbouring properties. The amended plans overcome those issues. There's no compromise of the 25-degree rule. And that blunt instrument's been somewhat superseded by the shadow and daylight studies that have been provided. And they also identify there's no material harm to any of those neighbouring properties.
In fact, there's a care home carry weight as well. Is that material or not particularly?
Well, the benefits of any scheme are material. For us, as a council, clearly we've outlined corporately just how beneficial it is to provide care and try and keep people out of hospitals or give them, opportunity to live in the community as well, which is the other benefit of it being within a city centre, isn't it? Being in an accessible location close to other activities rather than being parked out on the edge of a town or city.
So it ticks a needs box.
Certainly does.
Thank you.
Next question for the officers. Councillor Parsons. Come on.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, ma'am. Have you seen any figures that would?
Sorry, I did see you. He was up before you, though. Yeah. Don't want you to get upset. I'm not avoiding you. Right. Away you go. Where you go, Adrian.
Thank you, Chairman. Have you seen any figures regarding viability that would indicate that a 3-storey building is essential as opposed to a 2-storey building?
Well, it's more to do with numbers of rooms. I think the applicant explained that generally they're looking at 64 beds. The original scheme came at 57. I think we had that hard discussion about going down from 57, which I think was already a bit of a compromise on their part, get to an acceptable scheme in terms of neighbour impacts, and that was 54 units. We certainly have been led to believe, not only by this operator, but other operators, that that's at the lower end being viable. we haven't actually been given financial figures though to back that up, but that's the general understanding. We obviously have someone here from the housing side of Cornwall Council, and they might be able to provide some further detail about the viability of units.
Okay.
Councillor Pascoe.
Well,
Oh, sorry.
so if there was some additional information, then that might be useful.
You want to go in now, Sarah?
Yep, can do. That is correct. For a care home, we are looking at 60 to 70 units to make it a viable proposal. And that's just generally because the number of beds and the viability of the care service on site.
Okay, gentlemen? Okay, right, Councillor Pascoe.
Thank you, Chair. Just picking up on that last comment before I ask the question of the officer. So if we're now talking about 60 to 70 beds, which makes a lot of difference to the number of visitors and staff and things up to from 54, doesn't it?
No. The scheme is for 54 beds.
Yeah.
The housing officer was mentioning that generally for new accommodation, they'll be looking at 60 to 70, generally speaking, to make it a viable proposition.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. That wasn't my question. I wonder if you could put up the slide with the picture of the 3-storey elevation. Now, can you tell me, are there balconies on some of these rooms that would be overlooking?
No balconies on those particular rooms.
On any elevations?
There's a balcony or
Thank you.
terrace on the rear, so the property, the elevation on the bottom, sort of in this area here.
So people can go out on the balcony and overlook gardens?
Do you want to show the site plan and actually
Can
explain
you,
it to them?
yeah,
How far away it
can
is?
you show me the site where those balconies would be overlooking? What is,
So that's kind of the balcony area there, serving a lounge area, I believe. In terms of the impact on that, it would be to the properties to the south. It is outlined in the report, the separation distance there. And again, the properties generally, the buildings that you can see immediately close to the southern boundary are kind of outbuildings, garages. I think the one on the left has been converted to an annex with holiday use.
So the balcony overlooks the amenity area, the garden area, communal garden area. The windows look like they are because it's a 2.5-storey building, so they're put into the roof, so they're not balconies, they're full length windows.
yeah, we keep saying it's a 2.5-storey building, but it really looks very much like a 3-storey building.
Okay.
To the houses. And that was the other question I was going to ask you. I did take the trouble to go around there this morning before coming in here. And I'm not sure, forgive me if I missed it because something came up on the screen about standby, so forgive me if I missed it. But I saw bungalows when I was going around there, not 2-storey houses, some of them are. And I didn't see any in your pictures. So can you just flick through those pictures of the residential area that surrounds the site for me, please? No.
Yeah, so 2-storey Bosqueen on the right as to the southern boundary.
Mm-hmm.
Bungalow there, St Mary's Bungalow, which is to the east of the site.
That's the east.
Yeah.
Okay. So the east, looking where the 3-storey overlooks.
Yeah, that property there from just sort of on the other side of the proposed car park. But my understanding of the layout on that property is that's a bathroom, schooling glazed bathroom window. Living space is within this area with bedrooms on the other side.
But it's overlooked and overbearing on the 3-storey side. Yes.
Well, we don't consider it to be overbearing because it's separated by the car park and it's quite a distance away. So overbearing generally is when you've got big walls right against your window or something like that.
So
from a planning point of view.
That's that bungalow. Can we go through the next slide?
This property here is set down Lanherne, so it's kind of to the northeast of the site. It's accessed through the site believe that's the garage area, and then you go into the property. They've got a conservatory, I believe, on that end down there, with the garden generally splaying off away from the photo, or in the direction of the photo.
Do we have any more bungalows?
No, I think generally 2-story then along the western and northern boundaries. Off Chainwalk Drive.
Fine. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the officers before we go into open debate? No? Right. Who wants to start open debate? Alan?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I know the site very well. I'm a Hendra boy, born and raised, so I know it really well up there. In Cornwall, we're crying out for care home places, especially critical care. Councillor Nolan spoke about a new care home that's being provided in Truro on the old football ground, but Corserve have recently closed down 2 other care homes. So we do need provision, and putting provision in Truro makes sense to me. That's where the greatest need is. The use of pre-commencement conditions to control noise. Pre-commencement conditions it's completely standard practice. You know, it's what we do. You know, it helps applications go through quicker. Otherwise, we're asking for everything up front, which just slows the whole thing down. So I don't have an issue with pre-commencement conditions. The site is going to have a +17 biodiversity net gain. I don't agree it's overdevelopment. Looking at that layout there, that seems perfectly reasonable to me from development principles. There's lots of green areas and communal garden areas for the residents. Truro City Council support the application. There are no highways objections. It's potentially 30 to 35 new jobs for people in Truro. And yes, the building is larger than the current one, but that's kind of the point, isn't it? So that's what I would say on it. Thank you, Chair.
You're making a proposal on that one, or?
Yeah, I propose to recommend approval as set out.
Okay, but carry on with the, who was next? Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, several points really. I understand the economies of scale and the size viability. I get that. I think sort of Councillor Nolan's pointed to the part about demand, although I take what you say as well, Councillor. On the sort of unemployment issue in Cornwall, we are below the national average at 3%, and many Cornish care homes are already going out of county to recruit, which they're currently, as are the NHS. So, you know, we already have a housing issue in this county. So that is a concern for me, particularly around the Truro area as well, seeing that we are already building other facilities. On top of that, that's probably my biggest concern is the 3-story from single-story use and the impact, along with the parking, on the impact and quality of life on residents. I think we're here to look after our residents as much as anything else, and I think that has to be taken into consideration as well. But my biggest point would be already people going out of county to recruit staff for the care industry, and actually we don't have the housing to accommodate those people. Thank you.
Thank you. I think anyone who has tried to arrange care homes for an elderly relative, you know, a grandparent or parent, will have a sort of keen understanding of the crisis we face. And I would say that since the previous Mountford House care home closed, and when that was fully operational, and today the world is a different place in terms of the crisis for care homes. In terms of overdevelopment, I agree with Councillor Rowe. This is really good, I think, in terms of design, comparable to other care homes that I've been to visit because I had a relative or something there, and I particularly like the sort of outdoor garden space that's afforded for residents, because, you know, on the point of who is not here to speak, apart from potential employees, of course, it's the future residents. And I've got to say that I would be more than happy if a relative of mine were placed at Mountford House. Looking at the design, I think it shows a sort of care for the quality of the lives of the residents there. Jobs. So I know of local people who lost their job when the former care home closed, and I would be surprised. I really would be surprised if the potential former staff there didn't come from the immediate Truro area. I'd be really surprised. Parking. Now, I do feel for the residents on Cyril Road and Travern Road. As I say, I live not far from this application, and I know of the pain of people in Truro with this parking. What I would say, and it's interesting, so we have the portfolio holder for transport for here, Councillor Rogerson, and I'm sure that he will that he's going to support the idea of a parking review for Truro and my own patch. Like going forwards, we know that there's a real need for a parking review. And what I would say, those residents, and I'm surprised they haven't already, is lobby your divisional member, and make sure that your area is included in that parking review. Yeah, so I would actually be happy to support this as set out. So to second Councillor Rowe's proposal.
Right, so we have a proposer and seconder. Is there any other open debate you wish to talk about at the moment? Sorry?
Yeah, I was going to.
Yeah, oh, sorry, yourself, yeah.
Just a couple of points really. See from what we've all heard here this afternoon, we've got an aging population. We need care homes in the area. We need to relieve some of the pressure from the local hospitals. This plays some part in doing it. The divisional member mentioned that the residents would be happy if 3 of the rooms were taken up on the south side of the field. So that's only 3 rooms we're talking about here. So it's not going to have that much of an impact. And it's on one of the slides here where it was 2-story, when it came out further across the land. But where I'm sitting is that they've taken that story there and basically lifted it up on top. So it's taken it away from the local residents there. So you're not going to have the overshadowing that would have been there originally. So it's an improvement on the site. So everything I concur with what feels here today, and yeah, I think it's a great improvement to what was there originally.
Unless anyone's, yes, Councillor Parsons.
Thank you, Chair. There are those with far greater local knowledge than me on this side. I don't know it very well at all. Really, it's a planning application, so we have to make planning considerations. And to be truthful, a lot of what Councillor Tudor said, I can relate to with this application, because I think design, I thought it was quite aesthetically pleasing. And I think what they're trying to do with the space outside is nice, and there are greening gains within it. The noise, I'm not sure how much that does wash for me. With there are roads all around, we hear how busy it is. There's apartments go up the road, and there's other things happening. Labour shortages. If we can't fill jobs in Truro, especially in the current environment, people do need a good kick up the backside, but possibly not a planning consideration, kicking people up the backside. But I do you know what? One thing that is a bane with me is overdevelopment of sites. And this is a brownfield site, and I, compared to the last application we had, that we should be developing out our brownfield sites. But why? Well, I know why, because we need to maximise efficiencies of these sites in such developments. But I was somewhat alarmed with the photo of the site and the surrounding vernacular as such, as it did look like we were plonking a rather large building in obviously a residential area that is predominantly bungalows. And when you look through the details within the application for several of those properties, it looks like there will be a loss of light at certain times of up to, I think it was about 20%. So there's no doubt the scale and the mass of that building is having an impact on what's around it. And that's why what I'd like to say is I think the speakers who have come and spoken today have spoken very well, very genuinely, very honestly, and I think their considerations should be taken on board. Whether that's enough to outweigh balance of considerations, I'm not sure, because clearly there is a need for such a facility. Thank you.
Oh, Councillor Challen, yes.
Yeah, I'm actually planning officers confirmed with that, and Alan, I concur with Alan, and I think we should go to the vote. I would have been happy to second it at the time.
Right. Unless somebody's got something new to add, I think you said you got to be off at 1:30, Andrew, didn't you?
1:30.
Yeah, well, that's 3 minutes time. So I'd like us to have this vote with a full committee. So unless somebody's got something new, I don't want to go over something's already been discussed, but if there's nothing new, are you happy with?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we're at that point, Chair, where we should go to the vote.
Yes,
Yeah.
without doubt. So the proposal, Angela, would you like to say it officially? Proposal is from from Alan, Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Tudor. So all those in favour, please show. Those against? And abstentions? Right.
Okay, so I can confirm that the application has been approved by 8 votes in favour, 2 against and 1 abstention.
I think we should take a break now because you will not get a lunch, but it looks by that clock, it looks as though we got to book a breakfast. But the fact is, if we come back here for 1 o'clock, and please be on time, please be on time. Back here for 1 o'clock. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, yeah, have a good Christmas.
Yeah, same to you.
Yeah.
Percy the Penguin asks to be excused, all right?
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, he's involved with the count, is he, later on?
It's back on now, Trevor.
Right. Right, thank you very much. Members, we're now into our third application here today, which is PA 25-01930, land south of Whitestone Road, Bodmin, Cornwall, PL 31. So I'll pass this across now to Steve Kirby to present.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. The application before you is an outline planning application with matters to be considered now, which are the means of access, layout and scale, with some matters reserved, such as appearance and landscaping for proposed development of 71 extra care apartments and associated works. The key considerations you will have noted from the case officer for the previous project that there is a response to a critical need for specialist care accommodation and delivery of social and economic benefits aligned with Cornwall Council's objectives, so I won't go on to that to say any more about that. The location here is immediately adjacent to the boundary with Bodmin, associated in reasonable walking distance to services, facilities and routes for local bus service. The local bus service is about 370 metres away to the east, to the west, off Whitestone Road and then St Mary's Road. The town centre for this scheme is about 1.6 kilometres away. Protecting residential amenities, the scale and location proposed building is sought to offset the impacts regarding overshadowing, overbearingness and overlooking and privacy and noise. There is a drainage scheme which seeks to manage surface water and the quality of design and respective character and appearance of the area adjacent to the nature reserve and wider landscape setting, and accessibility and car parking are considerations. Here is the location and context to Bodmin. This is a slide simply showing some designations. The pale blue is the local nature reserve, and there is a little little orange dot which represents Gilbert's Monument, or locally known as Bodmin Beacon. And the site itself is in this location where I've got the cursor now. You can see the Prow network, public rights of way, and there's the Heritage Railway, Bodmin and Wentford Heritage Railway at the southern edge.
Yep.
Just a bit closer up of the site itself, it's 1.16 hectares, mostly grade 3B, which is best and most versatile. There is a little bit of grade 3A, which is on the adjacent to the southern boundary. You can see the project also includes a proposed footpath connection to Bullwyn Road in the south. And of course, we've got the vehicular and pedestrian connection to Whitestone Road in the north. The blue land represents land that Cornwall Council owns, which is part of the Forest for Cornwall. That is all planted out, and those trees are slowly but surely establishing themselves. Again, just another representation of the site and the aerial, and in the context of residents of Door Crescent and Forest Drive, which are to the west and southwest of the site, and we can see obviously housing that's immediately to the north, Stone Road. Submitted photographs just indicate what the site looks like. This is obviously shown in full summer. The first image on the northern boundary is the existing tree line. Then the whole field image, obviously taken from a drone, just shows the indication of the northern image, the northern boundary and the western boundary. And then the western boundary in a little bit more detail, showing properties in Door Crescent and Forest Drive. And then this is the image looking across towards Forest Drive and Door Crescent, as at sort of site level, shall we say, with the trees to the north hedge boundary on the bottom image there. And then just a little bit more closer up images of the northern boundary hedge. Again, obviously that's as it would be in full summer, and the bramble scrub along the northern hedge boundary looking east of the site. Western edge, it's a mix along the western edge with existing properties. Clearly, there are some areas where residents of those properties can see across the site, other areas where it's quite well screened. And then the established tree planting, which is part of the Forest for Cornwall scheme. This is the proposed layout. Layout is material consideration. So we can see the access off Whitestone Road. And then coming into the site, it's about a 25-metre splay being proposed. I'll explain a bit more about that in a minute. And then we have the site access coming in. We have the parking arrangements, a total of 41 parking spaces. There are 36 spaces that are dedicated for the scheme itself, and then there are 5 spaces which effectively are compensating for loss of parking on Whitestone Road, where people currently park. So essentially, that would be these parking spaces would be open to local residents, essentially. Then we have the building itself. It's a U-shaped building. And then we have a pond at the bottom, which is essentially there to capture stormwater from the development itself. And we can see what would be essentially a fairly substantial area of new landscaping, which is part of the reserve matter scheme. That was what I was just alluding to earlier with regard to the access point and the visibility splay. So that's the reason why those 5 spaces are being shown off the new access drive within the development site to compensate for loss on Whitestone Road itself. Just to advise, there'll be 5 trees lost along the northern boundary to essentially enable this. This will be roughly in this area here. This is to allow this access driveway and the parking to be placed in that location. Scale is a material consideration. These section drawings give us a very clear indication of the scale of the building. The context to section AA is looking from Forest Drive, Door Crescent, and you're looking up with, in the background, you have properties in Whitestone Road. And then obviously as the site drops down, again on the section BB, you've got the properties in Whitestone Road to the left of the image. And then at the very bottom, you've got the sort of indication of the pond and then the southern boundary of the site. So the building is seeking to respond to, in terms of massing and stepping down. And then section CC again is just to indicate how the 2 ends of the building, as it were, so these would be the most westerly points of the building, might be seen in context. And this is a massing model just to illustrate the point about sections. Again, these are the western treatments here. Obviously appearance and therefore the detailing around elevation treatment is reserved. So that's not for discussion to today, but there are obviously some indicative information submitted. The driveway coming in off Whitestone Road, the relationship to properties in Door Crescent and Forest Drive. This is just some work that the applicants have submitted through their architects, just to give us a little bit more of a sense of the relationship. I think this recognition that there should not be any windows, particularly above first floor. So basically ground floor might be possible. We'll have a look at that in terms of potential reserve matters. Excuse me. And then we have the orientation of the building for the 2 wings, the north and south wings, so essentially sort of north and south. And then we have the indication of where existing residents are located and the orientation of their windows. So the analysis also from the applicants has looked at the distances which are set out in the report, and it just gives an indication of 25-degree angle from habitable room windows, that actually the building, whilst it may appear very close, nevertheless we can see that the relationship is actually quite a comfortable one. There is some impact, yes, and it is reasonable to assess that, but it is considered to be relatively limited in terms of the impact on those residents' amenities. And then these are just a visual of building entrance. Again, appearance is a reserve matter. Nevertheless, it's just an indication of what it may appear like. And again, landscape is a reserve matter, but again, it just gives an indication of what that might also look like in terms of the planting regime that is being proposed for the scheme. This is an image of the site. You're looking towards the sort of western area. Beyond there is a prowl, which are effectively where the traffic stops. So in terms of the trees to be lost, essentially they're just off to the right-hand side of this particular image to make way for the driveway. This is within the site itself, and you're looking across and sort of in a west-southwesterly direction, but you're from within the Forest of Cornwall planting area, so you're looking towards the boundary of the site itself. So as you can see, obviously it is pretty open in terms of the view of the landscape beyond. And then what's been done here is a montage to indicate what the building massing and scale could look like. in context to how you would read the rest of the image. And also, in fairness, it does indicate that these trees hopefully will be growing. So there, of course, is another form of screening for the particular property from a particular open access viewpoint. And then this is from the south, looking up at the southern boundary of the site. So the image is taken with the viewer, they've got their back to the boundary with the Heritage Railway, and they're looking up, and you've got a view there of a property in Forest Drive, and then the site itself would be roughly in this context, in this location. And then these are wider views now. So this is something like 990 meters, and you're looking northwest, and we can see the Gilbert's Monument or Bobbin Beacon, excuse me, and you can get a sense of the landscape and the woodland, and then the context in which you would see or possibly not see so much of the building in context of the existing landscape. And then further back, 1.1 to 3 kilometers away, and again, you just see a context of the town and the setting, and then the relationship of the buildings would be roughly in here. So you would see the profiling of the top of the buildings for sure. And then further back still, 2.6 kilometers away. So you can read this now in the context of the town, and obviously you start to sort of lose the development within the wider context. Well, clearly you will see the former development, but it becomes less intrusive. That's 1.9 kilometers away, and again, you will see the development, of course, but it's less obtrusive in that context as well. This is 1.75 kilometers away, so again, just another viewpoint. And again, same situation applies in terms of how you would read the development in context of townscape and landscape. This is a montage. It is just indicative, but it just gives an indication of what the development might look like in the context of the townscape and what the information I've just been describing. So it sits below. There is no intervisibility between the beacon itself and the development. Obviously, there is a landscape impact, and the report does indicate, particularly from the landscape officer, that clearly closer up to the development in terms of the relationship to existing residents, of course, it would feel quite moderate, quite substantial in terms of that impact. But in terms of the wider landscape, then it's less so. So those are just some images just for members' benefit, really. And this again is an illustrative elevation view of the southwest. So clearly it is just an elevation. It's always difficult to give a full detailed picture of it, and its appearance is something we'll be considering in reserve matter stage if members were to be supportive. But nevertheless, you can see what the general idea is here. These are views from representation submitted very late yesterday from a local resident, but I wanted to put these in for members' benefit. You will have seen an email from that resident with these images attached. So this is taken from Forest Drive. You're looking along the southern boundary, so you can see the planting, which is directly to the south of the boundary of the application site, which is to the left of the image, and you can just see that relationship. And this obviously will be hopefully growing up and establishing over time. The concern the resident was expressing a few concerns, but I believe they've all been covered in the report. The pond itself, which is designed to capture stormwater, because there is a mixed filtration on the site. It's not perfect in terms of infiltration following some recent groundwater monitoring, but nevertheless, that large pond to the south in the layout is designed to capture all the stormwater from the site itself. And then this is just another image again from the representation submitted, which is obviously illustrating the point about the parking regime and the parking arrangements. And as I said, there's about a 25-metre width to that parking visibility, sorry, to the access visibility, but there's some compensation on the site with 5 parking spaces. So in terms of balance considerations, we've mentioned the point about critical need, special accommodation. We'll also have remembered from the previous presentation that there's a sort of critical factor of between 60 and 70 beds to make a scheme work, and this is 71. This will deliver social and economic benefits. It's a sustainable urban location in terms of its adjacency to the town. It has improved the massing and scale. There's been some modifications to that scale to make sure that they seek to reduce that impact to the west and southwest. There's been a lot more analysis on the business of relationship to neighbours, which we believe to be satisfactory in terms of understanding that relationship now. There is no objection from highways, and there is sufficient parking. It is considered to be potentially a sustainable project, Obviously, we need more details later on in terms of the building efficiency, and there would be planning conditions regarding drainage and noise. I would just do one or two quick verbal updates with regard to the conditions. We would like to add a couple of planning conditions, please, with regard to provision of cycle parking, to the EV charging. There's 10 EV charging points being indicated, and also just a couple of adjustments to a couple of planning conditions. One regarding ecology and biodiversity, to strike out the point about any measures required under Licence for Natural England, because that is covered by other legislation. And with regard to the construction environmental management plan, just to make clear that there would be protection in terms of noisy activities. They would be restricted to Mondays to Fridays, to Saturday mornings, from that's 8 till 1 o'clock on Saturdays, and shall not occur at any time on Sundays and public and bank holidays. So that's just for clarity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Stephen. Our first speaker is Councillor Pete Ski of Bodmin Town Council. Are you there, Pete? Hi, Peter, are you there? He was already. Okay.
I'm coming.
Tell me when you're ready.
Can you
Hi.
see me?
Lovely. You can hear me okay?
I can hear you, yes.
Right. Can I say, Pete, if I can interrupt you a moment, you've got 3 minutes in which to say your piece, and you'll get a 30-second warning that you're coming towards the end of it. Okay? So,
yeah,
but don't turn off. Don't turn off at the end, because there may be questions coming your way.
All right.
Okay, away you go, pal.
Good afternoon, councillors. I'm the chairman of the Bodmin Town Council Planning Committee, and we have grave concerns about this site, because when it rains, it really floods down there, and we're really concerned about that. And this scheme is going to create about between up to 50 jobs, and there is only currently 36 parking spaces planned on the site, and we feel this is a genuine oversight, because the scheme doesn't allow for any residents potentially having their loved ones coming to visit them, and any residents that may or may not have their own cars. So we feel there isn't sufficient parking at all, and this, we would be more in favour of this scheme if it was more up in the main community of Bodmin. We all feel that this scheme is sort of stuck out on a limb a little bit, and the sorts of people you are attracting or hoping to attract to some of the most vulnerable people in society. We just feel that where this scheme is being potentially proposed is
30 seconds left.
completely the wrong location, because of who you're trying to attract. We would like to see the scheme more or less brought up into Bodmin a lot more. and we've had a lot of complaints from residents to me personally that live along
Pete,
White.
I'm going to have to cut you off there. Your 3 minutes are up. And I don't think you mind me calling you Pete rather than councillor, because we know each other so well, as Dan knows you well later on. But you've now might have some questions coming to you, but we have to be very strict with our 3 minutes.
That's fine.
Okay? So, members, any questions you want? Councillor Pascoe has got a question for you.
Good afternoon, Councillor Ski. Can I ask you, you mentioned you'd much prefer it nearer into Bodmin Centre. I believe you said that. Are there alternative sites, brownfield sites available?
I don't know of any currently, to be honest. No.
Okay. Councillor Pascoe, is that okay? Yeah. Okay, Pete, just a second. Any other questions for? Yes, one from Councillor Tudor.
Hello, Councillor Ski. I wanted to ask what particular vulnerabilities of the residents, the potential residents of this facility, would cause a problem for local residents. I ask this because in my area, a similar facility was proposed where former drug addicts and people with complex needs are going to be housed near a school and college. So I just wondered if you feel able to elaborate on that at all.
I just feel because they're on my planning committee feel because they're like more of the vulnerable side of the spectrum, I would like, or we would like them to feel more part of the community rather than stuck out on a limb. If that answers your question.
It does, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. The proposed development forms part of a strategic rollout of new extra care housing schemes by the council, with permissions having already been granted at Liskeard and St Austell earlier this year. As Sarah will explain, the apartments are a type of supported housing for older people, which can help reduce the need for more intensive care options and relieve pressures on the NHS. There is currently a need for 290 extra care housing units in the Three Harbours and Bosfenna community area by 2050. This figure is separate to the need for other forms of supported housing for older persons and is a number that is continuing to rise. The proposal will help meet these supported housing needs whilst contributing more generally towards the council's housing supply, of which there is currently a serious deficit. As is set out in your officer's report, the development is a policy compliant scheme. It is to be 100% affordable, with all the homes to be for rent, and will be restricted to people who have a local connection to the parish and who are in housing need. The application is a result of a collaborative working relationship between officers and local stakeholders, with the applicant having undertaken extensive pre-application engagement with the council, its councillors and local community. In terms of the latter, a public drop-in session was held in November last year, to which 19 people attended and who provided some very valuable feedback. Regarding the objection that has been raised by the Town Council, a comprehensive written response was provided to the issues raised following their meeting, but I would just like to address the point around parking, seeing as this has also been raised by some local residents and by a couple of late representations. Firstly, the number of spaces was increased following pre-application feedback from local residents. Originally, 35 spaces were proposed, but now 41 are shown. Of these 41 spaces, 5 are to be allocated to local residents, which will offset the 3 roadside spaces that will be lost through the site's new access, thereby resulting in a net increase of 2 spaces for local residents. Regarding the spaces that are proposed for the scheme, these accommodate residents, visitors and staff and exceed the council's own parking standards for these types of developments. The applicant's own research also shows that the number of spaces proposed is higher than that provided at other extra care schemes across the South West. The site has been earmarked for extra care housing by the council for some time and is considered to be an appropriate location for its intended use. It is in a quiet residential area close to local convenience shops and green spaces.
30 seconds left.
It is also owned by the council, who will be able to maintain control over its future delivery and operation. Moreover, not only will the development provide much needed supported housing for the area's ageing population, it will create new jobs and result in a much richer environment for local wildlife through significant tree planting, new Cornish hedging and native plants. The benefits are tenfold. Thank you, and do let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Emily. Any questions of the speaker, please? Yes, we'll start with you, John, and then we'll go to yourself. Dulcie.
It's okay.
It's concerning the, as the town councillor suggested, that they might feel isolated in this part of Bodmin as opposed to anything nearer to the town centre. Do you think the facilities within the plans would mitigate those concerns of isolation?
Absolutely, there's a balance to be struck. So the development itself will provide a degree of facilities for the residents. So there'll be things like a hairdresser, communal living spaces. Sarah can touch a little bit more on the types of things that the building will contain. But it's also a very short walk to 2 local shops, a Morrison's Daily and a spa, and local bus stops. And it's a very distinctively residential part of the town. So it will be next to an existing community, and rather than being sort of out on a limb that Councillor Ski has suggested, in my view.
Thank you. Dulcie, yours?
Hello.
Hello.
Instead of doing this, I'll face this way, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So we heard an objection was that there were sort of 50 staff jobs potentially here with only 30 parking spaces, but you mentioned you changed the number, so we're talking about 41. But presumably would all those staff be at work at the same time?
No. So it's anticipated that I don't know the exact number of staff on site at any one time, but certainly won't be 50. Though that number covers all manner of staff, from medical staff, cleaning staff, catering staff, support workers and so on, and they definitely won't be all there at the same time.
Right, okay. I just had another question, Chair, if that's okay. So this is for elderly vulnerable people, or people, I know, I do recognise the need for that. What's the age cut-off?
The age over 55s.
Over 55?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Fine. Any other questions for the speakers? No? Thank you very much, Emily.
Thank you.
Mrs. Sarah Keast. We invite you now to give your 3 minutes, and you'll get the same 30-minute warning before the end.
Thank you, Chair.
30-second warning, I should say. No favoritism here.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today about this proposal for older people, for our parents and for our grandparents. It's not just about the development, but a cornerstone of our vision for safe and caring communities in Cornwall. This extra care scheme represents a strategic priority for the council because it tackles one of the most pressing challenges we face: how to support our growing older population in a way that promotes independence, dignity and choice, while reducing pressure on our health and care systems. Extra care is not simply housing, it's care, support and a preventative service that allows people to remain independent for longer, prevents unnecessary hospital admissions and reduces reliance on institutional care settings such as residential care homes. It also enables couples to stay together when one partner has a care need and the other does not, a simple but profound benefit that traditional care models often cannot offer. National studies have shown that extra care schemes deliver measurable benefits, including reducing GP and community nursing visits, shorter hospital stays and fewer delayed discharges. Significant improvements in residents' health and well-being. This is about ageing with dignity, and it's about sustainability for our health and care system. The demand is clear and it's growing. Within just a 5-mile radius of this site, there are 122 people over the age of 65 living in care homes and 155 people aged over 65 receiving domiciliary care at home. These numbers will only rise as our population ages and as conditions like dementia become more prevalent. In Cornwall, our over 65 population will increase by 45% by 2050. If we do nothing, we will see more people entering costly institutional care and more pressure on our hospitals and community services. We actively encourage local recruitment through the Proud to Care initiative. We have lower levels of international recruitment, and we ensure that our care providers pay the foundation living wage. This scheme offers 71 affordable rented self-contained flats with priority giving to over 55s.
30 seconds left.
Eligible care needs under the Care Act and are ordinarily resident in Cornwall. Allocation to the scheme will be managed by a panel, including the council, the housing provider and the care provider, which will ensure fairness and transparency. Members, this scheme is about prevention, independence and dignity. It's about meeting statutory duties under the Care Act while delivering better outcomes for people and reducing long-term costs for the council and the NHS.
Thank you, Sarah. If you hold it for a moment, are there any questions for the speaker at this point, please? Yes, Councillor Tudor.
I should possibly have asked this to the previous speaker, but to your knowledge, were there any alternative sites sort of in and around Bodmin that would have been looked at?
Yeah, we've certainly done an extensive trawl of council-owned sites and other sites in Bodmin. And unfortunately, because of the size of the site that's needed for a facility like this, it's 2.5 acres really to make it viable with the number of units we need. So this was the only viable option open to us.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, certainly.
Service. Yes, as far as I'm aware, and we did some research just before we came into the meeting, there's a bus stop on St Mary's Road, which runs into the town centre every 2 hours. And what we have, we've been in conversations with the transport team, who have given us their best endeavours that when the scheme is operational, if planning is approved, that they will, use their best endeavours to get a bus stop either within the scheme, because the scheme does allow for a bus sort of turning space, or closer to the scheme than St Mary's Road. Thank you.
Any other questions of the speaker? No? No. Okay, thank you. We've passed it along to Councillor Dan Rogerson now, who's the electoral divisional member. You do have 5, Dan, if you want to take advantage of it, and we'll give you 30-second warning.
Thank you very much, Chair and members, for affording me the chance to speak. Any development of this size, as we were hearing about the Truro one as well, obviously there's a concern to local residents. It's a significant impact, and so I want to run through some of the issues that have been raised with me by residents, some of whom would have liked to have been here today, but because of work and caring commitments are not able to do so. But then I'd also like to finish off with my reflections as an elected member, building on the work that my predecessor did during the process to where we've got to now. First of all, the visual impact. While that's not, some of that is not, I know, material planning consideration. Obviously, for local residents living nearby at the moment, they have fields and trees in front of them, and so that's an issue for them that they've raised. The fact it's on the edge of the town, which Councillor Ski has raised, I think it's got pros and cons to that, because it does give the space, therefore, to do a sort of purpose-built job, which you might not have in other locations.
And also for the residents who will be there, it gives them a pleasant environment to be in as well, to be honest. The outlook that they would have then would be one that hopefully the sort of retired people who we want to see there would be, be able to enjoy. The drainage and flooding issues, I think, are a concern, and Councillor Skees quite rightly raised that. Having spoken to residents, they've experienced sort of flooding of their gardens and things. And I should correct at this point that it's Foster Drive, not Forest Drive. Very, very similar, but it's a slight change. It's Foster Drive, probably named after a former member of Bobbin Town Council, I think. But if the attenuation works that go in here are right for this site, my hope would be, and I would seek, sort of more reassurance that it would also help the neighbouring residents as well. And so rather than having an open field where they do get that runoff problem, it should improve matters for them, as well as making the site safe. We have huge need for this. We've heard already, and we know all as local members of the local authority that we're failing in our duty essentially to provide this type of housing in Cornwall, and we need to provide it. And that's why I welcome the fact that this has such a strong local connection embedded in it as well, because I know of residents in Bodmin who will benefit from this, and those who will have missed out on it because it's not come soon enough for them. And so couples have been split up and so on, had to go into care homes and different, more traditional forms of support because this wasn't available. So it is important, and I do think we have a duty as a society to provide that. In terms of other sites, as I say, parking, which is where I want to finish, is probably one of the biggest problems that we have here to deal with. And I can't think of any other sites in town that would be better in terms of providing parking. In fact, I think they'd probably be even worse to generate the parking you would need on a site like this if we were trying to do it in a more central location. So, and also I welcome the fact that the footpath is protected through where the tree planting is as well, because a lot of young people will use that route into school at the moment to get across to Bodmin College around the back of the town. And so the fact that that route is preserved, I very much welcome. When it comes to parking, that I think is the main issue for me, which is that, yes, there is steps have been taken to do it, but as the photograph that was provided by the resident, I think particularly in the evenings, that's where you'll have an issue and everyone comes home to Triningle View, Kinsman Estate and the surrounding area. So where I finish as local member is that I think we absolutely need this for Bodmin, and I think it is the best location that we have, and therefore I am supportive of it going forward. So I take a different view from the town council. I know some town councillors are more supportive of it, but I would urge the committee to, in their discussions and in their challenge to officers and the developer, to see what we can do on the parking, because I can still see that is an issue. This is probably a better site for parking than others, but I do worry that this isn't enough, even with the extra 5 that have been identified because of the frontage issue. So those are my remarks. I come down in support of the application, understanding the concerns that residents have, but want those assurances that the flooding situation will be improved and that the best possible amount of parking spaces are provided on it.
Any questions for?
Sorry, but am I correct in thinking that Leader of the Council is supportive of this as well, isn't he?
The Leader of the Council represents the other end of Bodmin,
Yes.
but he submitted a letter again supporting the fact that Bodmin needs this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you know if the surrounding residential streets, the ones sort of immediately adjacent, if there are parking restrictions on those streets, or residential parking?
Apology. We don't have residence parking schemes in place in the residential streets around this, so no.
Okay, thank you.
Anything? Yes.
Do you think that a more regular bus service and the installation of a bus stop within the site would help alleviate any of the parking problems?
I would certainly hope so, and obviously, as given my responsibilities in wider council, where we can encourage people to use public transport, I would do it. So with the investment opportunities we have to create some new bus stops, the issue would be some of these would be commercial routes, so it would be conversations with the bus companies to persuade them that there is the patronage there. But actually, I think, you know, a number of older residents who tend to be the ones who use buses providing this location will help make the case for a bus stop and bus services to be used. And that could be then a benefit to the wider community who at the moment have to go further down to St Mary's Road to access the bus network. So that could be a benefit to that.
And that's something that you support?
Absolutely. I think, you know, seeing better use of public transport is, yeah, and that could help. But as I say, I still have concerns about parking, so.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else for the councillor? No. Okay, so we're open now to questions of the officers. Anyone got a question of the officers? We are. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, question for Mr. Kirby. I know that there's a phosphate impact assessment from CEC, but we'll be doing a full nutrient runoff assessment to make sure that the site achieves neutrality due to its proximity to the local nature reserve.
Yes, thank you, councillor. Yeah, the nature reserve is north of the site rather than south. So in terms of impact to development, and the runoff, the impact would be southwards, so in the southerly direction towards the railway, actually. But in this particular context, a lot more work had been done because there were initial concerns about the nutrient neutrality calculations not being achieved, and hence the reasons why in the reports and the conditions there are certain trigger points with regard to keeping pace with the wastewater treatment work enhancement, which is due by 2030. So our consultants acting for us on nutrient neutrality are satisfied that when you combine Forest for Cornwall and all of that land with the proposal, with the drainage scheme and the trigger points in which you can occupy development, which is basically about 56 homes, I think I've got it in the report, then essentially we're happy that that meets the requirements for nutrient neutrality in this case.
Councillor Tudor.
I sort of listened with interest on the extra conditions at the last minute and followed them all. But I did wonder if you could explain in simple terms the condition with the striking off of the Natural England.
Is because the under licensing, that's actually held by separate legislation. So it's our ecologist that often seeks it, but in truth, we don't need to impose it because they would be required through law to follow the requirements of Natural England. There's a licensing regime, so anything that's done that possibly alters or affects protected species has to be enacted through Natural England's laws. So in that context, we don't need to bother putting a condition on incorporating it.
Just to be clear on that, sorry, Chairman, that's the when you impact upon a European protected species, you need a license from Natural England. Natural England regulates that process. What we regulate as part of the planning authority, of course, is the impact of the scheme. So as part of the scheme, we've got the usual ecology and biology reports, and so we know the extent of impact now. The reason why we're striking that from the condition is that that's not a process that we regulate in terms of the permit from Natural England. That's what they regulate. What we can tell you today is that we know the impact upon the European protected species, and we're satisfied that that's acceptable. The reason why Steve is recommending to remove it from the condition, it's not a process that we regulate.
Yeah, just to elaborate on that, Chair, if I may. So I'll give you my own personal example, Councillor Tudor, to help you. So I am doing a barn conversion that's taking a long time. So I had to apply for a licence because I had protected species. I had bats. So I engage with Natural England. That's between me and Natural England. If I don't do that, I'm breaking the law, to be quite honest. And planning are not well, not saying they're not concerned, but they're not regulating that. It's Natural England and myself. If I don't do that, I'm personally breaking the law. So that's what we're saying. It's not a planning concern. It's other legislation. If that helps.
Yes, it does. Although I did wonder why not belt and braces, but thank you. That's helped a lot.
Any other questions of the officers? No? Yes, Peter?
Does that area generally, is that earmarked for any more development? So that would be the end of that development in that area, would it?
I would say, Councillor, in context of how you see the land uses formed and shaped around there, you've got this site and then you've got the Forest for Cornwall. So clearly that would prohibit development because that is now part of the bigger planting regime that we've got for forest.
Fine, thank you.
No other questions of the Councillor Pascoe?
Thank you, Chair. Just really thinking aloud, actually, if I might sound off of Gavin, the divisional, Cornwall councillor, the divisional member, is concerned about the parking. There's not enough of it. So is there any wriggle room? Is there any way that more parking can be achieved? Because we do know there's always problems with parking when there's lots of people visiting and
yeah, thank you.
staff coming in.
It's a fair question. I mean, and it's a bit like the Q&A on the last scheme. Clearly, there is a kind of overall provision of employment for these sites, but because it's 24-hour care, 24-hour living and care facilities, then there's going to be quite a bit of toing and froing. I think in context to the way it's been set out and the changes that have been made by the applicants to provide, say, those extra 5 spaces in context of the physical street parking on Whetstone Road, and the fact there are no other sort of provisions available, then I think it is reasonable to assume that we have as much as we could achieve for this site. Now, if the applicants in some future point can improve on the public transport facilities, fantastic. That's clearly, we've got a kind of baseline to work with at the moment, which is obviously the bus provision on St Mary's Road and walking access to local facilities. But I think in the context of what we're seeking, the applicants also provided other examples in the report of similar sort of projects. So it gives a sense of how many spaces are in practical use in context of the number of bed spaces being proposed.
If I could just chip on that too. So what we can do as planning officers also is to tell you what policy requires. And in this instance, policy requires 1 space per 6 residents and 1 space for every 2 members of staff. So if we were to be policy driven by this, and of course that's our starting point, it's an over provision of 17.67 spaces according to my calculator. And that's with the additional 5 spaces. That's not including the additional 5 spaces that's provided for members of staff. For the public, I should say. And in my experience of planning, I love that. I've never seen it before. Of course, people in towns are going to object on parking because, of course, it's an emotional topic. And of course, it makes your life easier if you can park next to your house. I've never seen developers offer parks for members of the public to offset the removal of a cul-de-sac. So I welcome that. I think it's a great thing from the scheme. And yeah, so from a policy position, we tick the box. And the other thing I'd just like to touch on is that, sorry, it's a main town, and how often do I sit here talking to you all collectively as a planning committee about accessibility, sustainable modes of travel? It's not that great. It's in the countryside. It's not the case with this one. We're in Bodmin, and so I think it's reasonable to expect the possibility of people to walk and cycle to the site as well. So there are other options, and I love that about this scheme. I love it also how it's providing accommodation that they can then become part of the town and not outsiders. So it's inclusivity in terms of modes of transport and the people, I think, is the strength of it. Thanks, Chair.
Right, in that case, we'll go into open debate. And as the adjoining member, I would like to just make a mention of the fact that parking is always a problem when we have applications that involve a lot of people. Doctor surgeries, hospitals, office accommodation, Travail building at Bodmin was built, nowhere near big enough. I was in Bodmin Callywood College yesterday, and they've got car parks there probably as big as anything in Truro, and they're all filled up. And as Dan well knows, they park all over the place, don't they, Dan? On the industrial sites, everything. I think it's a constant problem with anything you do when you've got a lot of people there. But Bodmin has a lot of residential homes and flats and housing, etc. But I think this particular application is in a superb position for anyone who takes advantage of it, because it's, as Dan will no doubt nod his head, any residents there can go for a 200-300 yard walk if they wish on level ground and back. There's shops not too far away, probably 250-300 yards down, shops and stores and one thing and another. And in the summertime, if you want to, or for about 7 months of the year, you can watch the steam railway run along the field at the bottom. It's a beautiful sight. Most of the ones that we have in Bodmin are on steep hills. Bodmin is a hilly town, and most of them are on steep hills. So consequently, the residents don't get the opportunity to go out. Yes, they can walk down the hill, but they can't come back up. And, you know, there are a lot of them in Bodmin like that. I think this is an excellent, excellent site. And I think people will be thrown to bits who move in there because of the location. It covers everything as far as I'm concerned, except for the parking. But it doesn't matter where you go. If you went in town, you'd have the same problem. same problem. And because I'm a joining member, it allows me to vote on this. So I would like to propose that this application is accepted. Yes.
Sorry, was that
Councillor
part of the debate or was
Sorry?
that part of it?
No, we're on
confused
a
as to
open
whether-
debate.
Yes,
We are in open debate.
so that was part of the debate or was it all?
Yeah, I said we're now in open debate, and I've just given it as the adjoining. Yeah, and so this is the time that we do put proposals in. I propose that this application is accepted because the problem's going to be there wherever you build this in Bodmin. You're going to have a parking problem. Councillor Channing. Seconded. Fine. Anyone else wish to say anything in the open debate or whatever?
Whilst I probably wouldn't describe it as being thrilled as having to go into extra care accommodation, I do think this is probably a location that would be very comfortable and very fitting.
Yeah.
You know, as a rural person, I think the setting could be very nice, beautiful in fact. Where is there more sustainable in Bodmin? Clearly there are going to be issues with parking. Take on board what the town council member has said, but I you know, if we were further in the town, there would still be issues with parking, wouldn't there? You know, I think this application should be welcomed, and I'm more than happy to support.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? So it's over to you, Angela, with the proposer and seconder.
Could I just jump in quickly? That was just
Yes,
with the revised annex to conditions that set out from Steve in his presentation for the recommendation. Just to clarify that.
Any conditions, Dan, that you can think of that you?
No, very delegation for outline, isn't it?
Between you and Pete.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I think the parking.
that, just to be clear on that, that was those minor amendments to the conditions that Steve read out at the outset, which was the inclusion of covered parking for cycles on site and also for EV charge points, and also the deletion, the strikeout of the requirement to for the Natural England for our ecology reports. So the intentions of those conditions are still remaining as set out in the report. And one last amendment, that's correct, the SEMP condition, which was ensuring no noisy activities on Sundays or bank holidays. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, can I just to come in as well? Sorry, not being awkward. I think I'm just making sure that Councillor Tudor and didn't want to come in with any comments. I mean, we've obviously got a proposer and seconder, but we can still have debate if you want to. That's the point. So I don't want you to feel that you'd stifled that debate.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. No, thank you, Ben, for the consideration.
And that's unanimous, Chairman, with 9 votes in favour.
Noted, Chair, noted.
And item 6, Chair, any other business?
Can I wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Chair?
And we hope they enjoyed the pie.